Today, we'll talk to Jamison about his first time at Disney World with a group of 18. That's coming up on this episode 499 of WDW Prep to Go. Hello and welcome to WDW Prep to Go. We talk strategy and ideas for people planning their Disney World trips, and we have lots and lots of trip reports, including today. I am your host, Shannon Albert from WDWPrepSchool.com. Thank you for being here for episode 499. My last time starting an episode with a 4. I can't believe it. But today is another trip report, and we don't get first timers very often, but today it is not only a first time planning a trip to Disney World, but with a group of 18. So if you can imagine, if you can remember back to when you first started learning how to plan Disney World trips, and then imagine having to do it for that big of a group. So we're going to have my chats with Jamison coming up in just a second. As always, a reminder to follow on social media, but I wanted to specifically mention that we've been going live every morning on Facebook and YouTube to talk about the day's news and topics and things like that, just as another way to kind of, get content out there in a real-time way that doesn't require editing or preparation, too much preparation. We do have notes that we use, but we don't have to think too much about it. We just go. Every day we have a topic that we talk about. So if you are a Facebook or YouTube person, you can catch it live and interact with us because we answer questions while we are live, or just watch the playback later. If you want to later in the day, you can do that. I think that's it. Let's jump into my chats with Jamison. Welcome to podcast, Jamison.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Shannon.
We're talking on Thursday, January 15th.
Yes.
And you're going to Disney World, I heard.
Yeah, we're going early this coming Saturday. So that would be the 17th. And then it's, I guess, a fairly short trip. We're coming back on Thursday, the 22nd, like flying out late.
Okay, 5 days. And who's we that's going on this trip?
So it started with like me and my brother, but it kind of spiraled out where there's a group of 18 of us total. And so it's my family, which is me and my wife and my 2 daughters, who are 6 and 9. And then my brother's family, which is kind of the same dynamic. He has 2 daughters, same ages. And then my sister's family, she has a 5-year-old son and a baby. And then my parents, who are both in their 70s, and then my in-laws, and then my wife's brother and sister. So yeah, that makes 18 total.
All right. That is a ton of people. Out of the 18, how many of them are first timers?
I don't think anyone in our group has been to Disney World in the last 30 years. So I
including
think we
you.
Including myself. So we went once when I was young as a family, and I think that was kind of the same for my wife and her side of the family. So that kind of encompasses everybody. And I don't have much in terms of memories. We went to Disneyland a couple times, so I think actually most of my memories are from Disneyland. I remember like running around Toontown, if that still exists. I think I remember getting my first ever churro, which is like still one of my favorite snacks. But outside of that, I don't remember any specifics or rides or much from that.
So then why now? Why is this group going to Disney World now after not going at all or not going in such a long time?
Yeah, I think my brother and I had talked about it in that our girls, we felt like are getting like a pretty good age where it would be a fun time to go. Maybe the one thing I knew about Disney was that Harry Potter World was not at Disney. And so we had also just finished like reading the Harry Potter books. And so it felt like a fun time to spend a day at Universal and see some of the Harry Potter stuff. And so, yeah, we talked about it for maybe a couple years. And then I just, reach out to my brothers, like we should probably just book something.
We should probably just book something and invite 18 of our friends to go.
Yeah, well, it started out like looking for stuff. I knew that he would be in. I kind of assumed that I'd ask my sister and that she would be in. And then we just like kept inviting people. So,
and did you become the de facto planner for the group then?
Yeah, I think when I brought this up to my brother, I was like, I'll just plan the trip. And he was just like, if you're going to plan it, I'm in for sure, because I don't want to have to deal with that. And so, yeah, I've been the only one doing any planning for our whole group.
Okay, so being a first timer is a challenge in itself. Being with a
Yeah.
group is a challenge, and you're taking on both at the same time.
Yeah.
How do you prepare? How did you learn?
Yeah. So, I mean, mine started out like, of course, like very basic with just trying to understand the difference between Disneyland and Disney World. And from like my initial research, when I kind of brought this up to my wife, it felt like Disneyland was probably the better option in that it's a, more condensed geographically, probably a little bit, a shorter trip is more convenient for Disneyland, and it's just maybe a little bit easier to navigate compared to Disney World. But I think she just had it like built in her head that like Disney World was the place to be. I pretty like quickly pivoted to say, I was like, okay, well, if we just want to go to Disney World, we can go to Disney World. And then, so yeah, I guess the big thing is looking at timing. I think I started looking at this in the fall of like 2024. And I was like, well, let's just go in December. And then, you start how early people book things out. And I started looking at like DVC rentals. And I was like, well, that's, not going to be feasible, especially if we're going to be inviting like a bigger group. And so I think that was my starting point, probably. Just I kind of knew I wanted to go like the DVC rental route. And so, I was like, well, this is not going to happen anytime soon. Let's just kind of pick a date that we think is going to be best for our group and then kind of work around that.
Okay, so DVC rental route. So where are you staying?
So we're staying at the Polynesian for our rooms at Disney World.
Okay. And everyone's doing that?
Yeah, so we have 5 rooms booked through DVC rentals at the Polynesian. And then we have one night, our first night there, that we're staying at the Royal Pacific at Universal.
Okay, and again, 5 rooms?
4 rooms to that one. Everybody, we're all on the same flight going out there except my parents. So we're all flying out early Saturday morning. My parents are coming Sunday morning and meeting us at the Polynesian.
Okay. All right. So then I think that gives us a start. So Saturday, January 17th, everybody except your parents are on the same flight and you go to Royal Pacific? Yeah,
Royal Pacific, I think land around 11 a.m. And I booked, I was looking at like Lyft and Uber costs. I think the average of when I was looking was after tip was maybe around like $50 per car. And if you got a bigger one, maybe even a little bit more depending on timing. So I ended up, I was first looking at like different like limousine options, which I thought would just be like a fun experience for the kids, which there are some, but it's a little bit limited with such a large group. I reached out to like so many different like rental services. And I think there was only a few that had like limos that were big enough. And we ended up using Happy Limo or Happy Limousine as like the company, and just using one of their like luxury minibuses that fits everybody. And then that like easily fits like all of our luggage too. I think that was going to be the issue if we like took a limo, is that we were going to not have like space for our luggage. And it came out probably pretty comparable to what we would have been paying for Lyft. I think it was $330 like after tip to get it picked up from the airport to Royal Pacific. And then it was the same cost that, they're going to pick us up from the Polynesian to take us back to the airport too.
Okay. So everybody's piling into a luxury bus and heading to the Royal Pacific. And you'll be there by, mid-afternoon or so.
Yeah, we get there at like noon, I think, if all goes well.
So what are your thoughts on how you're going to spend the rest of the day?
I didn't want to have much planned. I thought about getting like a reservation at one of the places at City Walk, but at least weather right now looks like that's going to be like one of our better days. I know all of our kids get, enjoy pool time more than anything else when we're on vacation. So we'll probably just hang out at the pool. and head down to City Walk and just kind of get some like impromptu dinner at that point. I think, this is, not like a secret, but of course, like staying at one of those like 3, deluxe resorts through Universal gives you like the express pass.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a no-brainer for us that we're just like staying there one night. I think the express pass would have cost like $213 per person for like the day that we were going to be there. And I booked our Royals Pacific room through like a third-party website. And of course, this was like almost a year ago. But our room cost was like just over $400. And so if we were planning on buying express passes anyway, I mean, it's essentially saying like, you could stay here for free and we'll give you like half off your express passes. So it's just like kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah,
to
and
stay there.
if you did it, you could do it 2 days. So it would make it even more worth it if you wanted.
Yeah, I thought about that. I was like, well, it kind of depends. Like if the flight goes well, nothing's delayed, which like is never like a guarantee with like Minneapolis weather, which is where we're from. So yeah, I figured we could bring it up like once we get there if we wanted to buy like same day tickets. I kind of don't think that we will, but it would be nice that, we'd have express pass that day as well.
Okay. So then we know what you're doing Sunday, January 18th. You're going into the park?
Yeah, I don't know how early we'll necessarily go. We'll probably try to get there like pretty close to park opening. I know we can get there like a little bit early just staying like on property, but yeah, the kids will probably be pretty excited. So I'm assuming we'll get there like pretty early. And yeah, with Express Pass, we'll kind of just like walk around and see what we want to do. I know at least some of the adults will go on some of the more thrill rides, of course. We did like a little bit of a litmus test for our girls because they'd never really been on like rides or roller coasters. So we had stayed at here in Minneapolis. There's like the Nickelodeon universe at the Mall of America where there's some rides. So we did that like at the end of December just to kind of have an idea of what they'd feel comfortable with. And I think they can ride some, more kid-friendly roller coasters, but some of the more intense ones probably not going to be for this trip.
Mm-hmm. Well, thankfully, that's what Disney specializes in. So they should be able to ride some things over there. But be a combo of things at Universal probably.
Yes, right. Yeah. And they're mostly excited for, the Harry Potter stuff, which is sort of, regardless of the rides, just being able to kind of walk around and like experience that and get a wand and kind of go through all that. I think that's what they're like more excited for than anything else. But yeah.
So you have park to park tickets?
Yeah. So we'll do just the hopping between Universal and Islands of Adventure. I thought about adding on Epic at some point during this, whether that's the day we arrive or we have like one kind of off day or the day we leave, but it's probably not going to happen. And I think it's like, from my perspective, maybe okay to wait as there's maybe having like some amount of like growing pains and some long waiting lines at that park. So there'd be, be great to see it, but I think we'll probably save that for another time.
Okay. And then there's going to be lots to keep you busy on this day with both parks. And then do you then leave there to go to the Polynesian?
Yeah, we'll see how long that we last. Again, I don't really know from that perspective. We do like the Minnesota State Fair every year, which is a big ordeal that we're like walking around and on our feet a lot. So that's like the best comp I have for like how long I think my girls can, walk around a park.
Mm-hmm.
We are getting like some strollers delivered to the Royal Pacific for everybody. And so I was kind of on the fence on whether that would be needed for sure for my youngest, but even Olive, my 9-year-old, like when we're going around to the state fair, she tends to like hop in the stroller like whenever she could. So I think it was erring on the side of having that available, knowing we're going to have some kind of long park days, and that was just going to like help out. But yes, so we'll see how long that goes. I'm assuming we'll make it till like late afternoon at Universal before we head over to Poly. If people want to stay, they can. I for sure need to get over there just because I'll be like meeting my parents as they kind of arrive. I booked a car service for them. I had a credit on like one of my credit cards through Black Lane is like a car service you can use. And so it was just going to be covered through that credit card. So I'll meet them there at around 4. And then we were having some like electric scooters delivered that will be for like my parents, and then some groceries delivered at about that same time.
And the electric scooters are delivered to the Polynesian.
Yes, but we got to be present for those. Same with the food delivery. Both of those are happening around like 5 o'clock. So I just got to make sure that I'm there at around that time.
Where did you get food from?
I just did like Walmart Plus delivery. It seemed to be like the best mix of just like having some basic like snacks and alcohol. We didn't go like over the top with food, knowing that we're probably going to be eating a lot at like the park and through our like dining reservations. But yeah, I was sort of surprised to learn that, you know, at the Poly, and I think this is probably true for most resorts, I don't know, that you can have like your own alcohol on resort and like at the pools as long as you're not like in a glass container. So that seems like a pretty simple way to save a little money as opposed to spending $10 to $20 per drink when you're hanging around the pool. We'll at least have some basic stuff delivered.
Okay, so scooters, food delivery, and a previous day you would have the scooter the stroller delivered.
The strollers. Yeah. And the strollers,
Yes.
I mean, it sounds simpler just to like rent in the parks, but I think I had like a Black Friday coupon with stroller to go. So for the whole trip, a double stroller for 5 days was only $63, which isn't much more than just like one day at the park. So that, again, kind of felt like a no-brainer.
Pros and cons. Just depends if you want to carry the stroller on the buses and stuff.
Yeah. And well, we have like obviously when we go to Magic Kingdom, it'll be nice to have the monorail. We'll have at least a couple times we'll be on buses, but yeah, I think it'll be manageable.
Okay. All right. So that's going to be a busy day at Universal and then all your activities at the Polynesian. What is your plan on Monday, January 19th?
So that'll be obviously our first park day at Disney, and we're going to go to Magic Kingdom. So that'll be for everybody. I sort of really went back and forth a lot on whether I wanted or what I wanted to do from like a lightning lane standpoint. And that was like the one day that we went with like the Premier Pass, which is sort of crazy when I look at our whole budget, you know, just adding on a Premier Pass for a group of 18, accounted for, somewhere between like 15 to 20% of like the total budget of the trip. So it's like an expensive thing, obviously. And it wasn't as much as being able to go on as many rides as possible. I think the biggest benefit for us was just like having the freedom to not feel rushed to get to the park and do like a rope drop. I mean, I'm assuming we'll still get there pretty early, but just being able to like experience the park however we want and kind of walk around wherever we want. I don't know the layout of these parks, of course, very well, or have any idea how long it takes to walk from like point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And so like trying to manage like a multi-lane pass for a group of 18 or teaching everybody how to do it just before the trip. Then I don't, have any delusion that our group of 18 is just going to be staying together for the whole trip, like when we're walking around these parts. But I think at least with like Premier Pass, it gives us some freedom to say like, we can stay together and do these rides, or if someone wants to split up, let's like meet up in a little bit at this ride, versus trying to do that same thing with like a multi-lane just didn't seem feasible. So that was sort of like the theme of the trip is like, this is somewhat kind of a once in a lifetime, like multi-generational thing that we're sort of going to like probably splurge like where we can.
Listen, if you can afford it, this is the easiest way to do Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, for sure. And so it'll be fun. I tried to like, I think we splurged like through lots of parts of this trip, and I tried to save like money where we could. I think doing like the DVC rental route like saves a lot, like at staying at the Polynesian. I think I was paying, at least when I booked the first room, it was like $21 per point. And this was like the least expensive time of the year to get points at Polynesian from at least a Sunday through a Thursday. And so it was like just over $1,400 or not much more than that. So it was, I think, $360 a night, I think, for that room, which is pretty good for the Polynesian.
It is really good for the Polynesian.
Yeah. And this was through like a Facebook DVC rental, I'd started with, I think, like David's, but I think quickly learned that was going to be a challenge to get like 5 rooms through that versus like working through the Facebook groups. It was more of just like reaching out to people that had points. So it like took me a couple weeks to get everything booked, but that was like the most feasible way to go through it, I think.
I hope your family appreciates how much work you're putting into this trip.
Yeah, I don't know if they like really know. And, a lot of my like research and stuff was, podcasts like yours, which makes it a little bit easier because it's just kind of like when I'm driving around and commutes and stuff like that, I can kind of research and absorb as I'm going. But I think my hope is it's like going to be everything goes well and a kind of an easy, fun trip. And, maybe they don't even like recognize like the amount of work that like went into planning it. And that's like totally fine with me as long as everybody, has a good time.
That is very kind of you.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Assuming everything goes well, and I hope it does, they may not know that it required so much research to make that happen.
Yeah. And it's sort of funny. Honestly, I'm like not much of a planner, I would say, which is like, maybe sort of like a de facto truth on most people that you have, like, coming on your show. But it was more of, I think when I get excited about something, I tend to just like dive in, which could be like a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. And I don't work in the service industry, but I also, whether it's like cooking for people or baking something or like organizing something, I just get a lot of like enjoyment out of like bringing people together and having a good time. So I think that's why it like worked to put this trip together.
So your motive isn't the same as a typical planner, but the result sounds like it's going to be the same because you had to learn.
I had fun doing it. I don't know if someone would want to have this undertaking unless they had enjoyed learning and like planning things, but because it's a lot of work.
It is. On Magic Kingdom Day with the Premier Pass, do you have dining reservations? Do you have top priorities?
Yeah. So I don't know if we have any specific priorities in terms of rides. We'll just kind of see how the day goes. I think I'm personally most excited to try out Tron. And then I did book dining reservations like throughout our trip, this kind of the 60 days before, knowing that I don't think we'll do all of these, but I at least wanted like options for our group. I think the only thing I have booked for that day is for lunch. I have a group of 10 for like Cinderella's Royal Table, which will mostly be just the kids and the moms. And then the rest of us at the same time, we're going to go over to Beacon Barrel for some food and drinks.
Okay. Beacon Barrel. I'm taking notes, and I just realized I don't abbreviate Beacon Barrel. My notes are full of acronyms because it's just easier.
Gotcha.
I'm like, what are we calling Beacon Barrel?
It's like new enough, I guess. You got to figure something out.
Well, and I don't participate in like Disney communities, so I'm like, I don't really know what people are talking about, but I can.
Like what?
I'll make it up.
Yeah.
So you're splitting into 2 groups: Cinderella's Royal Table and Beacon Barrel.
Yeah.
And on the free trips, I say, "Have you ever done that before? Have you ever done that before?" But we already know.
No, I mean they sounded like pretty popular places. I think I sort of get the perception that Cinderella's Royal Table is like the food is okay and it's decent, but it's more of like about the experience to do at least like one time. So this is just maybe going to be our one time.
Maybe.
But that won't be.
Miss Last Words.
Jamison. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Last words. I posted a short video online. The audio from Hamilton. You'll be back. Yes. Yeah. You'll see. And it got hundreds of thousands of views because I wrote on the screen, "Sure, you're going to plan one Disney World trip."
Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, outside of that, we'll just kind of experience the park kind of however we want and walk around. I don't know if we'll require like a midday break at all. I'm kind of hoping we can push through since we have like the Premier Pass this day. But we'll see. The Polynesian is also pretty close, so I know it takes some time to kind of still get like anywhere. But I would think at least like my Penelope, that's my sister's baby, she'll, whether she tries to take naps at the park or go back to the Polynesian, I guess we'll just kind of see what they're comfortable with. It was sort of funny when I like booked the trip and they're putting in names on like these DVC rentals. Like she wasn't even born yet. So it was, her reservation is just under like baby girl. But yeah, the only other thing we have booked that day, at least currently, I did end up adding on like actually just a couple days ago to do the post-trip dessert for the fireworks. I don't know if we're for sure gonna do it or not. I think we probably will. It just seems, again, I have no experience what it's like to actually be at the fireworks show. And so how busy it is and how stressful it is, especially with a group of 18 at different ages, trying to find a good spot to view it. I don't know if we're going to want to like go and stake out a spot way in advance. So it's again, pretty expensive, but it seems like
it is
maybe
expensive,
it's just
but I got to tell you, there's no better way to see the fireworks.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll probably just do it.
It's such a great spot. And tink flying goes right over that area.
Okay.
So what a delight. Assuming most people in your group don't even know that happens, that would be a really fun moment.
Yeah. I mean, people I think know that there's fireworks, but beyond that, like they don't know what's involved. We'll get to see it a little bit. Of course, like I think we'll probably watch the fireworks show from like the beach of the Polynesian on that Sunday night. And then, with the hope that we'll be obviously closer for Monday.
I think if you can keep it, because I think you would be really happy.
Okay.
Tuesday, January 20th.
Tuesday, when I was like formulating this trip, I was trying to pick between, do we want to just like Monday through Thursday do like one park each day, even with like Thursday being a travel day, we don't fly out till like 7:00 at night or something. So I was like, well, we could probably at least do like Animal Kingdom that day, and just knowing that we're going to leave by 2 or so, versus having like a break day somewhere. And I think knowing our group, that's what I kind of defaulted to. So Tuesday, we're not going to be going to the parks. So I sort of decided to, again, take that approach and then just try to like maximize efficiency like on our park days, which I think was, again, another reason we wanted to do the Premier Pass at Magic Kingdom, to just kind of experience as much as we could. So we have breakfast at 1900 Park Fare for everybody that morning. I had to break it into 2 different tables. I think we have a 12 top and a 6 top for that reservation. I'll probably check in either that morning to see if we can be close by. I'm not expecting them to have us, have a table of like 18 available for us. But yeah, it doesn't matter that much to me. Is, if we're close by, that's great. But if not,
the tip that seems to work for people is, instead of checking in the app, which you can do for table service reservations, you just skip that and arrive to the podium a little bit early, because it seems like the cast members have more control over the reservations and the seating if you don't do the app part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
But 1900 Park Ferry is just like one. I mean, who knows? They might be able to get you in a row, all 18 of you.
Yeah, well, sure. Okay. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, so it's obviously close by to the Polynesian, and, we could have done like Ohana breakfast, but I just thought it'd be more fun to kind of experience a different resort while we're there.
1900 Park Fair, I think, is more popular for breakfast these days.
Yeah. I think from like a food aspect too, that was probably a little better for like our girls, just in terms of what they would like. So yeah, I think that's at like around 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. And then the plan was just to hang out at the Polynesian for most of that rest of kind of late morning, early afternoon. It's going to be probably like a little chilly that day. We'll see. I think the high predicted right now is maybe 60, which it's probably not a deterrent from our kids like getting in the pool, which is fine. And then we were going to head to Disney Springs that afternoon, and we have a reservation at 5 o'clock at the boathouse. And that was one, of course, you can book like 90 days in advance instead of 60 days in advance if you go through Open Table. So that was like the first dining reservation that I made. It was a little bit easier to go through Open Table with like a big group anyway. So I think, again, I got a group of 12 and a group of 6 for our tables, and we'll see if we can be close by kind of day of.
Mm-hmm. And what other things do you have planned for Disney Springs?
Yeah, again, I don't really know exactly what to expect. I know the Gideon's cookies seem pretty popular. There was actually one of the things that was like for sure on my like must tries for food is there's like a gelato place there that I think is like relatively new. And I'm like a big like affogato fan. And so they have like some affogato there that just like looks really good. So that's probably like one of the things I'm most excited to try. I think my girls would get a kick out of like, we'll probably do like our souvenir shopping at like the big Disney shop there. And then I think they'll get a kick out of like the rooftop, like Coca-Cola place where you can try different like flavors of things. But yeah, we'll just probably shop around for a couple hours before the 5 o'clock reservation. And then at 6 o'clock, I had another reservation, I think just for 6 or 7 people at is it the T-Rex restaurant? Mm-hmm. Just, I didn't want to do like the full group dinner there because I think the food and ambiance at the boathouse will be better for adults at least. But I think the kids will have a good time at the T-Rex place. So they were just going to head over there, I think, for like dessert. Just as like kind of an excuse to sit down there for a little bit and check it out.
Okay. 2 reservations in a row.
Yeah.
And some shopping, maybe some Gideon's, maybe some gelato, Coca-Cola rooftop. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Busy.
Yeah. Yeah, between breakfast, dinner, hanging out at the pool and seeing how things go at Disney Springs. And then, yeah, after that, we don't have much plans. I think that night they have like one of the movie showings on like the Great Lawn at the Polynesian. I think it's The Princess and the Frog. So we'll either do that and watch the fireworks or just hang out at the resort.
And now Wednesday, January 21st.
So yeah, this will probably be like maybe our busiest day just because we were going to park hop on this day. Technically, both tickets we have, even Monday, is like a park hopper ticket. It was just less expensive to buy like 2 park hoppers as opposed to 1 park hopper, like 1 Magic Kingdom day. It wasn't that much different, but it was like saving a little bit. So we were, of all the mornings, this is probably the only time I'm going to encourage people that we're going to get up early and be there kind of at the start for Animal Kingdom. At least that's like my hope. And I did just the multi-pass that day. So I have our 3 morning rides booked. I think our first one is at 8 o'clock with the Zootopia show. Not that we would need it at 8 o'clock, but it was more so to have something booked right away so that we can start making some other reservations. We'll be at Epcot that afternoon. So my hope is we can get these rides at Animal Kingdom and be pretty efficient there so that I could still snag a reservation for the afternoon at Epcot for Frozen and Remy's and Test Track.
And are you doing all the Lightning Lane booking? Or are you using a tool to help? What is the deal here?
Yeah, so that's my plan. Like so far, I've just done everything on my own. Like the initial bookings were pretty straightforward for 18 people. I read mixed reviews on how feasible that was. I mean, the Disney app will let you make reservations for up to 20 people. And there seems to be like a mixed consensus on whether that just means whether you have 1 or 20 people, it's going to be like the same and if it's available. And then some people say you might want to break it into smaller groups because you're going to have an easier time finding lightning lanes. And I've kind of read anecdotal reports on both sides of things that some people running for big groups didn't have any trouble getting their lightning lanes. I don't know if I saw somebody manage a group of like 18. But yeah, I was going to use like Weight Magic initially, but as I've been like looking at sellout times through like those rides at Epic, I think all 3 of those rides should be still available after like our 3 morning rides at Animal Kingdom. And then we both booked the single pass for Avatar and then the single pass for Guardians that afternoon at Epcot.
Okay, so you're loaded up with lightning lanes on this day. So Animal Kingdom, you tap in at 8 o'clock, and then you have a couple other lightning lanes pre-booked at Animal Kingdom. When you tap in, is that the time that you're going to start booking for Epcot?
Yeah, that was my intention. So like our first ride's at 8 o'clock, and then I'll start looking like early afternoon for, maybe either Remy's or Frozen. I think Test Track has probably been booking out the fastest from what I could tell, but there's probably, I don't know if everybody's going to go on Test Track. I guess we'll see, but I'll probably end up doing that one for like later that evening because that was probably the most available time. So I think we'll try to shoot for like early afternoon for Remy's and Frozen. Like that would be ideal. And I'll probably err on the side of like booking those a little bit early, assuming that like the 3-hour window still works.
It does still work.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it makes me feel like a little uncomfortable because you just, but like if it works. So yeah, it's interesting, when you have like the premiere pass on like our Magic Kingdom day, it's like, well, like the planning and the organizing like stops there. You could just like go and do whatever you want versus even just like booking these like lightning lanes. You got to think about like where are we going first and then where we go next. And again, that's like a little challenging for me because I don't know how long it takes to get anywhere.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is the first timers, I always feel for you because you don't know what everybody's going to be interested in. Like, you said you tried to test out some things with your own kids, but until you're there, you don't actually know what they're going to ride. So what do you book and how long does it take to do things? I really empathize.
Yep. So yeah, I at least heard from everybody. Like I sent out an email before I booked lightning lanes to say, I just have to know if you want to go on this Avatar ride. And I have to know if you want to go on Guardians, because those are like the a la carte bookings. And then for like the lightning lanes, I tried to pick rides that everybody would go on. So, I think we're starting at Zootopia and then we're doing the safari and then we're doing Navi River Journey. So everybody's going to be able to do those experiences. I think there'll be less people that want to do the Everest roller coaster. And so we'll probably just try to squeeze that in if we get there early enough where people can head there and kind of get that done. But yeah, I'd like to get in at least a show or two for sure. We want to do like the Lion King. And so we'll kind of have to see how I've been trying to look at how that's going to fit into our schedule and where we're going to be walking. Yeah, it's just like a different feel when when we're going to be there that day. I'm going to have to like be herding everybody to say like, okay, this is like where we're going next, as opposed to, again, at Magic Kingdom, we'll have a little bit more freedom.
Yes, that day should be much easier.
Yeah.
At Animal Kingdom, do you have plans for dining?
We don't. I think we'll just see how things go and do some quick service on like whenever we're feeling hungry and want to grab something to eat.
Okay. And are you going directly from there to Epcot, or is there a midday break in there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm hoping that we can push and just go like straight to Epcot, just because there's like a lot we're trying to like accomplish in this one day. So it's like, again, probably the day I'm like most nervous for, I guess, because I don't know how it's going to go. I think we'll have a better idea after like having a day at Universal and a day at Magic Kingdom for how like the kids are doing with everything. But trying to take a midday break when we're at Animal Kingdom and getting back to the Polynesian and getting back to Epcot like seems like a little much.
That would be difficult.
Yeah. So I do have a couple like dinner reservations at Epcot, if not as just as an excuse to like take a break. And I have a couple options. So I booked, I think, enough for everybody at like Space 220. And then I kind of, in my head at least, I'm thinking that'll be more of like a couple adults take most of the kids there, because I think they'll, again, enjoy that experience. And then if that's what happens, there's like another reservation for what would be the rest of the adults at Beer Garden. And so we'll see. I think the other option that I'll just present to everybody like the night before is, if you don't want to do that, there's going to be a lot of like great food options just walking around at Epcot, and it's the Festival of the Arts while we're there, which again is sort of like a little meaningless to me because we haven't experienced a normal day at Epcot, with or without a festival. So it's not going to like seem any different to me. I know they'll have like different exhibitions and different like food options that people tend to get like excited about something new. But again, it's like all new for us. I don't know if it matters that much.
Yeah. It's hard to visit Epcot when there's not a festival. Mostly it's just the summer now.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we'll kind of see what people want to do, and we're just going to, again, maybe we won't use any reservations, and we'll just kind of just want to walk around, but we'll kind of wait and see.
What time are you hoping to hop to Epcot?
Yeah, I think like our last lightning lane that morning at Animal Kingdom is going to be the Avatar at 11. And then maybe we'll try to catch another ride or do another show before. But my hope is like at the latest that we'd be leaving at like 1 o'clock from Animal Kingdom to go to Epcot.
Okay. And are you hoping to stay at Epcot through fireworks?
Yeah, so I think our dinner reservation is maybe at like 6 o'clock. And if I can get like Remy's and Frozen beforehand, I think we'd plan on getting like dropped off at the kind of like the back door entrance by like the boardwalk, just so it's close to like the France Pavilion down there. And then maybe walk over through Norway and then kind of experience that before dinner. And then like after dinner, just kind of do more of like, again, rides in the main hub area by the big ball. I don't know what that area is called, but
the section formerly called Future World.
Okay. So I don't know.
Names now.
Okay. I anticipate people are going to be pretty tired, and maybe we'll split, and some people will want to go back, and maybe people are going to try to push through and just stay for the fireworks there. Or the other option would be to head back, and there's at Magic Kingdom that night is open till 11 o'clock for deluxe resorts. So if people really want to go back for those fireworks and then catch like a couple more hours of rides, I doubt that happens. I feel like people are going to be pretty tired. But yeah.
That would be a 3-park day, a very long day, because you plan to arrive at Animal Kingdom at openings.
Yeah, it's going to be early. Yeah. But so I think people are going to be pretty tired after dinner, and we'll probably have like an earlier night. But I guess we can always split up if we want to. That's really our last, at least, planned park day. So it's, again, the thought is just to try to squeeze in as much as we can while we're there, because we leave that next day, Thursday. We don't leave till that evening. So I didn't want to book another park day just because everybody's a little bit different on whether they want to do that like on a travel day or just kind of have like a more relaxed travel day. So I just have breakfast for everybody scheduled at the Kona Cafe, just at the Polynesian, sort of a later breakfast so people can sleep in a little bit. And I think the weather's maybe going to be a little bit nicer on that day too. Like we might hit 70. So again, could be like another good day just to hang out at the resort and go to the pool. But if somebody's feeling ambitious and wants to go back to the parks and they decide the night before, we could always get some like last minute tickets, and I can try to help, maybe with some last minute lightning lanes. But again, that can be like a little bit of a challenge if you're shooting for things in the mornings. I kind of doubt anyone's going to go back to the parks that day. It'll just be more of a hang out the resort till the same shuttle service will pick us up around, I think, 3:30 or something like that.
Okay. Around 3:30. All right. So did you, because you obviously you had to pick which parks you were going to do, and you chose not to do Hollywood Studios, right?
Yeah. So I don't know how much time I put researching and looking at, Reddit threads on like what are the best parks, which is like a very contentious and subjective discussion. But yeah, I think there were, Magic Kingdom, you just kind of have to do Animal Kingdom and Epcot between just the animals and the rides, at least from the lens of like my girls. I knew that they would enjoy those a lot. If I had to pick a ride that I think they're going to like the most, it's probably going to be Remy's. So we'll see. And Hollywood Studios, like my girls, like maybe even vaguely know what Star Wars is. And so that was, after kind of looking at things, that was probably the first one that I was going to cut from the list. And then I think it ended up, I think maybe the week that we're there, either that Tuesday or Wednesday, Rise of the Resistance is closing for maybe refurbishments, something like that, which would be like probably the main ride that I'd want to do. But yeah, so that was the one that I've opted not to include on the list.
It's often a choice between Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom for people.
Yeah. I think my girls will love Animal Kingdom again. I don't have any personal experience to back that up, but they like love zoos, and I think the rides there they'll enjoy. So I think they'll like it. And then I guess knowing that this was going to be like a park hopping day, it felt like Animal Kingdom. You can get a lot done in like a half day if you're pretty efficient.
Yeah, and the Animal Kingdom Epcot combo is super common. We've done it as well.
Yeah.
I also think Animal Kingdom is more enjoyable this time of year.
Sure.
The park is so beautiful, but it is the hottest park, and this time of year, you're not going to have to worry about that.
Yeah, I knew that we weren't going to book this trip in the summer. Like, I don't think we'd be able to handle like the hot weather days in Florida, like being from Minnesota. Like the weather looks like certainly cooler, like during our trip. I don't think it's going to bother us.
Mm-hmm. Do you have Memory Maker?
Yes, so far I just have it booked for like the single day at Magic Kingdom, because it's like, $85, which is a no-brainer, knowing that includes everybody in our like 18-person group that gets to like use and benefit from that. So I was just going to start with that, and then, chances are we'll add it on for that second park day if we, like the pictures and experience we get out of it from like the first day. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, with such a big group, it feels easier to justify because everyone's pictures can be added.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Okay. Is there anything about your trip we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I think that covers most of it. I guess like the other benefit I had from booking this for everybody is I get like at least like the credit card rewards from everything. So I was doing some like credit card churning and like buying gift cards from like Sam's Club. So kind of doing like those little tricks to like just save a little bit of money or get like credit card rewards like where you can. But yeah, I think I got close to maybe like 3,000, like the equivalent of like $3,000 back on like credit card points, just because I was buying so much for such like a large group.
Yeah. I guess that's the perk of being the planner, huh?
Yeah, that's just like my travel agent fee, I guess, for this whole thing. But yeah, I think that covers most of it.
Okay. Well, I hope you have a fantastic time, and I know that we're scheduled to talk pretty soon after you get back, so I'm excited to hear how it goes.
Yeah, so we leave just in a couple mornings, and then I think we're scheduled to chat maybe like the 5 days or so after we get back, something like that. So right. Yeah, I'm like a mixture of like nervous and excited. It's sort of a strange thing, putting so much like planning and effort into a trip. I've just like, I don't know, there's probably other vacations that are comparable, but you'd be probably hard pressed to find something that you really need to do as like much learning as research if you want to have an enjoyable time at Disney.
I've traveled the world, and I swear Disney World is still one of the hardest things in the world
to
plan.
Yeah.
But I have high hopes for you, and you've done all the research, so I'll talk to you in a couple weeks to see how it went.
Yeah, sounds good, Shannon.
Welcome back from your trip, Jamison.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shannon.
We're talking on Thursday, January 29th. So you've been back for about a week.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. Just kind of talking before we started recording, and that this is like a little bittersweet for me just because, this is kind of like the end of this big thing for me. And so, I'm excited to like relive the trip, of course, but it's sort of, has like some level of like finality to it for me. But
and this is literally where the post-Disney depression or blues come from.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what do I do with my time? I always equate it to like planning anything big, like including like a wedding.
My wife said the same thing.
Months and months of preparation, and then the thing happens, and then it's like, okay, well, now what are you going to do with your time?
Yeah. So it's like a little strange for me. But we had an awesome time. I think there were a lot more things that went right than went wrong, although there were like, of course, like it wasn't perfect. But there were like moments throughout the trip that reminded me of this like movie from the 90s called The Saint with Val Kilmer. I don't think this is a popular movie. Maybe just my brother and I, we like grew up watching it, but there's like these times throughout the movie where he has these whispers or asides to himself where he's like, after he accomplished some like seemingly impossible feat, he's like, miracle number one. Nice. And so there was like these times where just like things just seemed to like go perfectly. But so it was really chaotic, navigating with everybody, but like we managed it a lot better than expected, I think. Well, it was great.
I'm excited to talk through it with you. When I posted your pre-trip on Patreon, the feedback we got was like, oh, I cannot wait.
Yeah.
Because we don't get first timers very much. And to be a first timer, first time planning with such a big group is like, it's such a big undertaking, but it sounds like it mostly went well. So let's start talking through it.
Yeah.
Saturday, January 17th, most of you were flying in around 11 a.m. and then heading to Royal Pacific on your bus. How did that go?
Yeah, so 16 out of 18 of us were on the same flight out of Minneapolis at 7 a.m. So we got up at like 4:40 and had an Uber at 5. We live like fairly close to the airport, so it's always pretty easy to get there. All the cousins had like matching Disney PJs that they got for Christmas, so it was like early, but everyone was just like very excited.
Did they fly in their PJs?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. Cozy.
Yep. There's like always delays. I feel like coming out of Minneapolis in the winter, they always got to do the de-icing. So you're in line for that. There was some like maintenance issue that they were double checking. So we sat on the tarmac for about an hour. So it's just like getting a little impatient. And I think we made up some time in the air. So we arrived maybe like 45 minutes late, got our bags. And then like right at our carousel, there's like an escalator that goes down to like ground transportation, which it wasn't very busy down there. And as soon as you step off the escalator, like our bus was there waiting. So it's like a very seamless way to start the trip. Probably like the easiest like exit from an airport, where they just loaded our bags for us and we hopped on and we were just off right away.
And you were on a bus through Happy Limo, the company Happy Limo. And did they meet you at the baggage carousel?
So that's generally their policy. Like they'll have like the little sign with your name and they'll help you with luggage. If you have a bus or a really large group, they won't. They'll just tell you to meet you downstairs at ground transportation. But they were great. Like they communicated like a couple days in advance and the day before and as we were getting there, and they just kind of say that they monitor your flight so you don't have to worry about, you being that delayed. I think even if there was a unexpected delay at some point, if the driver's sitting there, it's like $15 an hour that you're paying, which is like pretty reasonable. But yes, we were probably like an hour late, but again, because they were monitoring the flight, there wasn't any charge. And again, that was like $330 for our whole group, and that's like tip. And you just kind of pay all that up front, so you're not having to worry about paying for anything. I think I looked at the Uber price at the time we landed, and it was after tip like close to $60 probably. So I think it ended up being like an extra $10 per person to have that bus. It was really nice, and there was TVs. The kids were watching a Disney movie, or maybe it wasn't Disney, but some animated movie like on the way to Royal Pacific. But and they have a lot of options. I guess I if you can upgrade there, if you have a big group, I'd certainly recommend looking into it.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a nice option for such a big group.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So you made your way to Royal Pacific?
Yeah, we ended up getting there, again, a little later than expected. I think we were kind of checking in around 1:30 in the afternoon. We were checking into 4 rooms there. I had called maybe a month in advance just to try to get us close together, and we were kind of all either on the same floor or really close by. Not that it mattered too much for Royal Pacific because we were only there one day, but they had 2 out of our 4 rooms ready at 1:30, which was nice. So then we at least got to bring our bags somewhere.
So so the people that didn't have the rooms ready could still deposit their bags in one of the
So I just went to my sister's room and we left our bags there. We didn't need much other than swimsuits. Mm-hmm. I think weather-wise, that was one of our warmer days, so it worked out for timing. That was just going to be a pool afternoon. So we got in swimsuits and went down to their pool, which is really nice. We were probably there for 3 or 4 hours and just had some drinks and food, and the kids were just swimming the whole time. And then the rest of our rooms were ready. I think right at 4, we got the text. I think we hung out the pool a little bit longer because I went to pick up the strollers at the lobby at 5.
Can't remember if you said which company you used for that.
We used Stroller to Go. Mm-hmm. And so we had 3 like double Bob strollers. We use like a Bob stroller at home, so we were like most familiar with like how it folds up and everything,
which is key when you're getting on the transportation and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, they were ready like right exactly at, I think I showed up 5 minutes early and they weren't there yet, and right at 5 o'clock they showed up. So that was great, and that was only I think $63 per stroller for the 5 days. Mm-hmm. So we didn't need strollers that day. We just kind of parked them back in our room, and then we all met over by the water taxi at 6 o'clock, and most of us hopped on that. I think a few people walked, but we were just going down to City Walk for the evening, which was really cool. I love City Walk. There was just like a lot going on. I think there was 2 or 3 like live musicians or bands playing kind of on the main thoroughfare while we were there. The first stop was just in the Universal store, so we all got butterbeer, or most of us got butterbeer. And then we were sort of just like lingering outside waiting for people. And then that was sort of like the first experience of being with this like really big group and how we handle that, because we were just like, we didn't have a plan that night. And so we're sort of all just kind of slowly walking and waiting for someone to make a decision on what we were going to do.
Was that person you that had to make a decision?
Yeah, I mean, that's like everybody's asking. It's like, well, what's the plan? I was like, well, for tonight, we don't really have one. So we ended up just kind of splitting up a bit to say like, well, if you're hungry, go find something. I think most people end up going to like the food court area upstairs a little bit. Some people just kind of hung out and listened to music. But yeah, we sort of just wandered around for a couple hours at City Walk, got back to the rooms at a reasonable time, like 8:30, just because we had a early morning and we're going to have an early morning that morning, and we were going to be waking up early the next day too. But yeah, and then as I would every night, I'd sort of just like text the group thread, like the at least basic kind of important plans for the next day, which for that next day was really just meeting over by the water taxi again. Our plan is to get there at like 7:45 and then let people know they needed to do like their bag drop and kind of the main lobby before that, since we were checking out that day. So yeah, everybody was the whole trip very like punctual.
That is so lucky, because it can really throw your plans off if you're waiting.
Yeah,
for people.
When you're just like waiting for one family, but that was like a non-issue for the trip. Everybody was great.
Okay. So it sounds like a good arrival day, and everyone had a chance to kind of swim and relaxing. Yeah. But you were preparing for the next day, which was Sunday, January 18th, to head into the Universal Parks.
Yeah, and we kind of talked like a little bit afterwards, earlier, Shannon, about some of these like park hopper days and how much we'd be able to like accomplish and that sort of thing. And I don't think it was our intention to be able to experience like the whole park. So our like main goal was just to like explore like the Harry Potter worlds. That's like what our girls were like most excited for. And then whatever else we did was just going to be extra beyond that. And so, yeah, I think getting into the parks was pretty seamless. I had maybe one mistake of just having all the tickets on my phone, and it was easy to get everybody in. But then once we started park hopping, it got a little bit messy as we were getting separate, and I'm having to like send screenshots of tickets to people. But yes, we got in right at like 8 a.m., which is just kind of, I think that's the start of early entry. And we went straight to Hogmeads at Island of Adventure, which is just, of course, what everybody's doing. I think right when we got there, the wait for Hagrid's is already up to like 150 minutes.
Yeah.
But the express line was pretty much all the way past like the Hogwarts Express area. So it just looked sort of daunting to hop in that like first thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking the times would stay about that throughout the day and we would just do it later, and it like only got worse. But it was a busy day for sure.
So which line did you end up getting in?
So we sort of just explored a little bit, just kind of like taking it all in. The first thing that we did was like the Ollivanders show, which is just like a really cool experience. And then most of the kids, I think, got wands after that, which like it was fun to do. It's just on like such a busy day. I think you could probably spend a whole day like just going through like wand quests if you were just like really into that. So we got to do like a few throughout the day, but yeah, probably weren't able to commit enough time to that to like make it worth it probably. But it was really cool to see. And then we just went and got some breakfast at Three Broomsticks. It wasn't very busy like early in the morning like that. And then the kids were not super excited about, or they were a little bit nervous about doing like Forbidden Journey, which after going on it, my like daughter and some of the other kids, I know they wouldn't have liked it. It would have been a little too much for them.
Too much for a lot of people.
Yeah, for me too. I learned in this trip the whole like screen type rides are like not ideal for me, I would say. But
interesting to discover that at Universal.
Yeah, well, I mean, and this is probably true for most of us in that, you know, not only have we not been to Disney in these parks, but I haven't been to a theme park and a roller coaster since maybe high school or something like that. So
Universal just tends to lean into that sort of
screens
form of a ride. Yeah. So it's hard.
Yep. My older daughter and some of the other kids liked it. So that was good because I know for kids' rides purposes, there's, a lot of those for sure. But it's really cool just to do the walkthroughs of the castle and Gringotts. So we for sure did that with the kids, even if they weren't going on the ride. And then we just, exit at the end. So it's cool just to kind of see that. All the adults at least went on Forbidden Journey, and we got in line at like Hippogriff, but I think one of the carts was down. And so they told us even like the express line was going to be like 45 minutes. So I think people ended up bailing on that, just not wanting to spend that much time in line for this like one day that we're going to be at this park.
I got to tell you, based on what you said so far, I would be frustrated.
Yeah.
I would, because really long lines for so many things, and that's with early entry and with having express passes.
Yeah. If there was like one thing I would have changed, and I don't know, I didn't work out the logistics fully in my head, but I would have just not gone to Universal on a Sunday, on a holiday weekend. Because I think it was probably busy most of the week, but it was, especially busy that day. I mean, I think Hagrid's for the entirety of the rest of the day after that morning was at 250 for a wait time. And it went down a couple times, so that probably contributed to it. But yeah, that was long waits everywhere, it seemed like.
That is a long.
Yeah. So, we sort of just walked around. Kids did some of the wand tricks. Adults went on some of the rides that were there. And then we hopped on the Hogwarts Express at like 10:45. So again, it's not like we had accomplished a whole lot at Hogsmeade, but it wasn't, again, it was more of just kind of seeing everything. Hogwarts at that, or the Express at that point, I think was a 45-minute wait. But with the Express, it was just a walk on. They took us like right to the front. We hopped right on. So that's, pretty awesome. And then, I think, the kids we had some good like pictures or videos of them like walking in to the other Hogwarts at Diagon Alley is at, in the other area. So just, again, taking it all in, got to walk through Gringotts. The adults that wanted to go on that did. And we just kind of went to some of the shops. They had some of the music going on. So again,
and were the wait times and like the effectiveness of this Express Pass working better for you at this park?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gringotts was also like 50 minutes, but it's we went through the line in maybe like 10 minutes, but it doesn't even feel that long because you're just looking at so much, and there's like the little pre-show.
Yeah, in some ways, that's a great amount of time because you want to be able to at least be able to look at everything.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't actually. There was a little bit of a wait, but it didn't ever feel like we were waiting. And then, I think we left the Harry Potter world. That would have been right at noon. I think we were walking out and kind of going across the bridge that would go to like the Simpsons area. And this was right when there was like a cold front coming through. This is for the next hour and a half, I'd say, is probably the only bad weather we experienced, where it dropped to like 50, but with the wind and the rain and the cloud coverage, it like felt like, I think it was below 40. And it was mostly like being wet in the wind is like what would get you. It came in quick right as we were crossing that bridge. Like my hat blew off and went into like the little pond over on one side. And there was like banners like ripping off poles. There was like a food cart that like rolled across the street. And so we tried to go to like the animal show that was just starting. I forget what it's called. It's like under a little grandstand area, but you're still like somewhat exposed to the elements. So we watched maybe half of it before it was just like we were feeling too cold, even as like Minnesotans. We were probably like a little bit underdressed. I think my wife was just like wearing a t-shirt for the whole day. So not ideal.
What a change from swimming the day before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we went to ET, which I know my girls were like really excited about because it was just kind of a pretty kid-friendly ride and just cool stuff to see. I think some of the kids rode it like 4 times, and there was like a bit of a wait, maybe 30, 35 minutes, but you're just kind of walking straight through the queue. There's not much of a wait with Express Pass. So they liked it, so they kept doing it, and then it was a good way to just like stay indoors for a bit. And then some of the adults were just hanging out at the Moe's food place at Simpsons, and so we met them after that just to have a few snacks and drinks. And by like 2:00, it was back to being like sunny and nice out. So it was, other than that little stint of weather, everything was fine.
Good. And I know on this day you were heading to the Polynesian at some point.
Yeah, so I pivoted a little bit from that. I wasn't sure how long the kids would last on these park days. So I was thinking like early to late afternoon, they might be getting tired, but having the strollers like just made it really easy for them. So as long as like the adults could stay, like we were fine. So I ended up pushing back the food delivery that was supposed to be at like 5 to 6. I pushed that back to like 7 or 8. I couldn't push back the scooter delivery. The latest was like 5 o'clock, but that's my parents' flight was like a little bit delayed, but they were still on track to get there right at 5. They took like I ordered like a Black Lane car service for them, and that worked really well. They helped them with baggage and got them straight to the Poly, and right as they were getting there, they were able to get the scooters.
Okay, so you didn't have to go over at that time.
Yeah, so I didn't feel quite as rushed to get there. Walking, like, I don't know if this is not probably the right direction, but in my head it felt like south on Simpsons, getting to like I think the Hollywood area was like that sidewalk was blocked off. I think they had a stage they were putting up or something like that, which made it harder. We just had to walk back up towards the bridge, like to get over to that area. But that's where we went next, and we did like the 2 Minion rides. With most of the kids went on that, and they My younger daughter didn't like these screen rides either, but my older one, that was like one of her favorite rides on the trip, like the Minion Mayhem one. I wanted to do like the Bourne Stuntacular show. I was like excited to see that, but that was probably going to be like a little too intense for my girls, and we were like, I didn't want to like commit more time to sitting down, so I sort of just skipped that, and we were sort of split up at that point where people were kind of doing their own thing in like maybe 2 or 3 groups, but we were kind of making our way back to Islands of Adventure because we at least knew before we left we wanted to get on Hagrid's. So we were kind of making our way there. We stopped at the Dr. Seuss area, which I think that was probably even more than the Harry Potter stuff, like my girls' like favorite area. So all the kids just hung out there for like the rest of the day until they went home, and they were just, even like the Cat in the Hat ride had a wait time of probably 30 minutes, but they were able to just kind of loop that and go on like as many of those rides as they could. And then we sort of did like this, kind of child swap where, the moms were with the kids in Dr. Seuss, and then my brother and I snuck off to do Hagrid's, and it was actually closed when we got there, and so we went back to Dr. Seuss, and then it opened up, and so we like rushed back, but still that whole time was at like a 250-minute wait.
That is such a long time.
Yeah, it's hard for me to fathom why anyone would want to wait that long. I think some of these wait times are like built into this, theme park culture, so it's especially like jarring when I'm like not used to going to these parks and like waiting in lines. But we still hopped in knowing that was sort of just a must do, and I think we waited 35 minutes with Express Pass, which was longer than what I read about wait times with Express Pass, but probably makes sense because it was at 250-minute standby. But yeah, I mean, it was probably my favorite ride of the trip. It was up there with like Guardians. Again, not being on many roller coasters since high school, I was just like, and like being able to be on it with like my brother too. We were just like laughing the whole time. It was just like such a cool ride.
Definitely worth 30 minutes of waiting. I don't know about 250.
Yeah, for sure. Even after that, I wouldn't wait 4 hours, but a half hour was doable. I would love to go back on like a slower park day. I think Express Pass, times you could get down to like 15, 20 minutes on like a slower day. And so you can kind of loop it a few times, which would be awesome. That ride was so much fun. We didn't have any like whatever the photo pass equivalent is at Universal, but a couple days after our trip, I like emailed Universal people, and they were able to track down the ride photo, and so I just kind of purchased that like a la carte, which it was cool. They were able to find that for us. And then I sort of swapped with my wife back in like Dr. Seuss land, and then she went off with my brother and did Hagrid's and Velocicoaster. There were some people that were just going on different roller coasters over there. I think everybody got on Velocicoaster at least once. I think my brother was the only one that did Hagrid's twice. But I went back with my sister-in-law and 4 of the kids to the Royal Pacific at, we were leaving, I think about 5:30 or so. We started to leave the park. Maybe a little bit later than that. Maybe we just walked back to Royal Pacific, got the bags, called an Uber, and then we got to the Poly. It was all like pretty seamless. We were getting there at about 6:30.
So logistics wise, getting all those people to the Polynesian.
Yeah, I was shocked that, so there was my sister-in-law and myself, and then our 4 kids, all of our bags and 2 double strollers. We were able to fit in like the minivan, which the driver showed up and he's like, this isn't going to work. And then we just sort of played some, Jenga and trying to get everything in there. And we had some suitcases on laps and stuff like that. But we were able to squeeze in. The Uber showed up in like 5 minutes. And, I don't know, it was a 25-minute ride or something to the Polynesian, but it really wasn't that bad. And then that was helpful in that we got at least our 2 families' bags So that like when my wife and brother, when they left the parks, they were just going to be able to go straight to the Polynesian, which some of the adults, I think they didn't stay till close. They maybe left the parks at like 8 or 8:30. So like pretty close to close. But yeah, I met my parents. They met us out front of the Poly. We went and got some like Captain Cook's food before like heading to the rooms. I had made a few requests with the Polynesian or Disney to try to get our like rooms together, which was like a little bit challenging. It took me like a few phone calls to get it to have somebody actually put notes in there, because I would call and make a request and they'd say, oh, this is a DVC room, we're going to transfer you to DVC. And then they would, and I was like, I think I probably made the mistake of like saying I was renting the DVC when they needed like the actual like owner's name and that information. So I eventually got through to someone that was able to at least put the notes in. So we were all just right next to each other on the 3rd floor of Tokila, which is like what I requested. So that was worked out perfectly that we could just have some adjoining rooms or be across the hall. It was awesome to be right next to each other.
I'm glad that you were close together. And that's a great building. That's a great building.
That was our top preference just because it was pretty close to at least the quieter pool and kind of centrally located, easy walk to like the hub. So that's kind of why I wanted that building. And then it seemed like it was just like the biggest one too. So maybe the best chance of like all getting together.
And were your DVC rooms like a standard view, or what were they called?
Yeah, they were all like the entry-level resort view rooms, which were...
So in that case, Tokelau's great too, because sometimes you can get a bonus view of something else.
Yeah, right. I think we were facing, or at least my room, we had rooms on both sides. Our room was facing the transportation center. So I think from our balcony, we could see like fireworks coming from, I'm assuming that was Epcot, that we could kind of see over the trees at night. But yeah, I think it was a perfect location for us. The first hiccup that happened was with like my grocery and alcohol delivery that was through Walmart, because I like pushed back the delivery time and it was in there for a later delivery, but they ended up still trying to show up at the earlier time, which was like right at 5 o'clock. I was like scrambling to like text my parents and try to text the delivery from Walmart as I'm like getting on to Hagrid's. That's when all this was like happening. So it was sort of stressful to try to get that done. And then there was somewhat of a language barrier with the delivery driver too. So they ended up not delivering the groceries and I guess just bringing them back to Walmart. I wasn't exactly sure. And then it said in the app that they would just attempt delivery later that night, but they kept pushing the time. I tried talking with support and they weren't exactly sure what was going on either, but you know, nevertheless, they never got there and they just canceled the order, which was a little bit of a bummer in that, you know, we didn't have like groceries and snacks for this Universal Park Day. And so I sort of realized the benefit of having those, especially with a big group, because there was constantly times where like I'm hungry or my kid's hungry, we got to get some food. And so that just kind of obviously slows everything down, makes it a little bit more difficult to be efficient when we're like trying to do quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's the alcohol that caused the difficulty, because without the alcohol they can drop it off. But if you want alcohol, then it's like, well, I want to include it in my order.
Yeah. And like my parents were there and they were asking around, but I think as soon as he saw my initial text that I wasn't at the park and I was trying to explain that my parents could get him, he just like left, because my parents were asking around if there was a Walmart delivery and they were out front, but yeah, it didn't happen.
That's a bummer, because that's obviously handy to have.
Yeah. So it was sort of a theme of this trip. I would wake up way too early and I could never fall back asleep. I mean, I wake up early in general, but I think just there was like a lot going on in my head as soon as I wake up.
All the planners listening to this will understand.
Yeah. So I was just like engaged with thoughts as soon as I wake up, and I'd never be able to fall back asleep. So I think I woke up at 5 a.m. that next morning, which is like the equivalent of 4 a.m. Central Time. And I ordered like a Walgreens DoorDash delivery to at least have some, peanut butter sandwiches and basic snacks and yogurt and stuff that we could bring with us to the parks. This again didn't go as planned. I scheduled a 7 a.m. delivery, and they just like picked it up right away and brought it to the front lobby. I was like trying to go back to sleep and I couldn't. So I just like left to go get coffee at 6 a.m. and realized at that point that they'd been calling me for the last 20 minutes trying to like deliver this food. So I wasn't exactly sure what happened. I know they want you to be present for deliveries. At least that's like their policy. But they had there was just food in that order. So maybe that's what helped me out. They left that with like Bell services out front. And they were able to get it for me, and they were easy to work with. So at least it didn't go smoothly, but we did eventually get.
Yeah, you didn't get any sleep, but you did get a few things delivered.
Yeah. So I brought those back, dropped them off like in the hallway, so I didn't want to wake up the kids, and went back to the main lobby. I texted my dad, knowing that he's the other one that would for sure be up early, so he came and joined me for coffee, just like in the main lobby. So that was kind of our rituals in the morning throughout the trip. And I had texted the group, the night before about meeting at like the second floor monorail. The plan was like 8:30 to be there out front. Again, we didn't feel like we needed to get to Magic Kingdom super early, just with having Premier Pass for that day. There was like less urgency to try to knock out some rides right away. So I think that, again, it's just like another benefit to having Premier Pass for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
are you ready to talk about that day then? Which is
I think
January 19th.
Yeah, yep, that's Monday. So that was Martin Luther King Day. I think before I left the lobby, I had like 3 orders of Tonga toast through like mobile order as soon as the Kona Cafe opened, and then texted the group just to say if anybody wanted some coffee, that we could bring those over. And so we just kind of shared that. Everybody got to try some Tonga toast a little bit. It was pretty good. And then, again, everyone was punctual. We were right out at kind of going through monorail security at the Polynesian at 8:30. I think we hopped on the monorail right at 8:40. It was a little bit cooler this day. I think the morning temps were like right at 40 degrees. It was maybe closer to 45 when we got to the parks, but 45 and sunny is like, that's like fantastic weather for me. I thought it was like a good temperature for enjoying the parks. You could have like a sweatshirt or a light jacket, and I'd way rather deal with that than like some of the hot summer days at the parks. That's, I think, much more tolerable. So that was just maybe cold for some people, but was just kind of a non-issue for us. We thought it was great.
Relatively speaking, it was warmer for you.
For sure. Yeah. So we get in, we take a picture out front, of course. We had photo pass that day. Then we got a picture at the castle as we're like walking up Main Street. The trolley with the quartet was coming down the street. So it was like a fun way to like enter and like see the castle for the first time. Up until this point, I didn't really have a plan mapped out for Magic Kingdom. Again, with like the Premier Pass, we were just gonna do whatever we wanted to do and kind of see how things went. I was a little surprised. We did a good job of like staying together as a group. I think we were moving around like probably 90% of the time together. It felt pretty feasible. I think it made it a little bit more possible in that no one had been to the parks, at least in a very long time. So there was no expectations or a list of things that this person wants to do and this person wants to do. Nobody really knew anything outside of myself. So it's just
sometimes as the planner, when you're there is the hard part, because people will see stuff and then be like, oh, Can we do that? Can we do that? And you're like, no, reservations for that opened 60 days ago or whatever it is. Sure. You know?
Right. Yeah, we didn't really run into much of that. People were just kind of like, well, we're going to keep walking around, and when we see a ride, we're going to go on it. We're kind of.
And Premier Pass does help a lot with that
Yeah.
because you don't have to worry about, did I book a lightning lane for the thing that they want to ride?
Yeah. I think if we go back someday, I think I could manage a park day now that I'm more familiar with the layout and being there with like the multi-pass, because it's just, the Premier Pass is like so much more expensive. But I have no regrets doing it that day for the first time, never using lightning lanes. It was just like the safest approach for us. And
Definitely is.
I think comparing it to the multi-lane pass, the group, maybe it didn't feel that different for them, but it was certainly different for me and like my mentality and the urgency of like herding the group to places and stuff. So yeah, I definitely don't have any regrets on using it for that day.
And it's very similar to the Express Pass, which you had just had at Universal.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we're without being at theme parks much, we're sort of spoiled from a waiting perspective. So it was nice to keep the waiting as short as possible because we didn't have that many park days in this trip. So that was sort of the plan, just to try to be as like efficient as possible while we were there.
So you said you didn't have much of a plan, but where did you end up deciding to go?
Yeah, so after like the photo right in front of the castle, sort of arbitrarily, Tomorrowland just like looks close, and right there you can see signs for rides. So that's just where we went. And through just like dumb luck, that like worked out pretty well for us. The first ride we went on was just like Tomorrowland Speedway, which is just like a great way to start the day. Something, it's not that there was a long line. I think it was 15 minutes posted. So minimal benefit to Premier Pass. But yeah, just like something easy to do that everybody could go on. And so that was right at 9:15 is when we were hopping on that. Then we went over to Dumbo ride at like 9:40. We had walked past Teacups. I think they were like temporarily down for a moment. It wasn't running, so we just figured we'd try to do that later if we could. They got off Dumbo, and then there was like a crew of, I think, Mickey and Pluto and Goofy, a few characters that were walking right by, and they went on the Dumbo ride too. And so we kind of hung out and watched those characters go on the ride. That was kind of our first like character sighting of the trip. And then just walked over to Barnstormer, which again, at least early in the morning, didn't have much of a ride or much of a wait. But we got on that at 9:55, and it's just kind of a good litmus test, for some of the kids that haven't done much roller coasters, to kind of see how they're feeling about it. So that was like, I think, helpful to start with that one for sure.
You got to build up to it.
Yeah. And then we took the trek over to like the Little Mermaid ride, and I think everybody went on that. And then I saw like Gaston's was ahead, which again, I didn't really know the layout of the parks, but I knew like when I saw Gaston's, I wanted to stop there and get a creme brulee croissant. So yeah, it was maybe a 15-minute or so wait. I ordered like 2 creme brulee croissants, ham and cheese, and then one of the big cinnamon rolls just to kind of share with people. So I met everybody right as they were exiting, I think, the Little Mermaid ride. So we just took a little break to either have some snacks, go to the bathroom. Yeah, and it was really good. And then, I ordered some extra frosting on the side at Gaston's. It's like a common pro tip I heard from different trip reports and such. And then we sort of just lucked out from a timing standpoint, but we were kind of turning the corner. It was like 10:25, and so we were going right by like the Enchanted Tales with Belle. And I wasn't really planning on doing like waiting in line for like character meet and greets, but this was at least one that I heard was like worth doing, especially if you get there at open. So again, that was just happenstance that we were there right at 10:30. So we were the only ones there, and walked in and got on the first show. And yeah, this was probably one of my favorite moments of the trip.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. So we had there was like a couple other families in there. I think maybe just a couple other kids though. And so all 5 of the kids got to be like in the little theater show that they put on for Belle, which, yeah, it's just like, I'm sure it's a fun show for anyone to watch, but like when your kids are like all up there, it's just like really cool to see. And my niece, Gemma, was picked for the Beast, which was cool. They start doing the show and getting the pictures with Belle. Then you don't exactly know what's happening. And then all of a sudden she gets to like do a short little dance with her, which is just like unexpected. It's just like so cool to see.
Do you have good pictures?
Yeah. I mean, I took a few pictures and videos, but of course those go straight to like the photo pass too. Yeah. So there were some really cool pictures of that. So yeah, that was awesome. Some of the moms and grandparents like tearing up a little bit. They just like do such a good job on that show. I checked the timing of it before we hopped on just to make sure we'd be able to still hit like our lunch reservations, and it just was kind of syncing up perfectly. So we got out of that show right at 11, and this is where we had like an 11:25 reservation at Cinderella's Royal Table for the kids and the moms and the grandmothers, and then the rest of us 8 were going to Beacon Barrel at the same time. So we just kind of hung around the back of the castle for a little bit before we kind of split ways. And I think both of those experiences were pretty awesome. I don't know if we do like Cinderella's Royal Table every trip if we go back, but being able to experience it at least once, I think was really cool. I think the adults thought the food was better than they were expecting, and the kids just had a great time. It's sort of like a lot of food, I guess, would be the only thing, especially right at like lunchtime when you're going to be going on like rides after that, which was sort of the opposite experience of us at Beacon Barrel. We didn't order much food. We had like our 2 drinks, and we shared like, I think 2 appetizers between the 8 of us, but it was mostly just to be there and have the drinks. I thought Beacon Barrel was awesome. We had
Which room did you sit in?
We had our own booth that was sort of facing the bar. There was like a sort of a half wall, but we could still kind of see through to the bar.
So you could see what was going on.
Yeah, you could see everything. Like we had a really great waiter, and it's just like a fun atmosphere to like have a couple drinks. So yeah, I think I'd heard mixed things, to your point, mostly based on maybe where you get to sit. But yeah, other than feeling like a little bit rushed by the time we had our second drink and being, kindly asked to leave. So we had to drink the second one a little, maybe quicker than we were otherwise would have. But yeah, I think everybody had a great time there.
Good. And I assume that you were wrapped up a lot faster than the Cinderella's Royal Table group.
Yeah. And so that was sort of a benefit. Again, not that I planned it this way, but it worked out well for us to kind of rush back to Tomorrowland and knock out like Space Mountain and then Tron before kind of the other adults and kids were joining us. So we went on Space Mountain first. Again, it was probably a pretty long wait at that point, maybe 50 minutes or so, but there's probably like a 10-minute queue for Express Pass, but it doesn't even feel that long. And yeah, that was a great ride. And then we moved over to Tron. I think right at that point is when the other lunch was finishing up. So we hopped on Tron. This was like right at 1 o'clock. And again, the queue is just like so cool. Like the little pre-show they do, and the screen that, becomes transparent. It's like the rides like shooting off. It's just like really cool to see. So it was not much of a wait to get on with the Premier Pass. It was a super fun ride. It's obviously quick, but as soon as we got off that, everybody else was kind of waiting for us just outside of Tron. So we took maybe a little bit of a break to kind of regroup, and any of the other adults that wanted to do Tron but hadn't yet kind of moved on, where the rest of us kind of took the kids, and I went on People Mover with like my mom and most of the kids. My 6-year-old Lula. I think that ended up being her favorite ride of the day, which is just like, it's fun. You just get to look at things, and I don't know, something like struck a chord with her. She just liked it.
Lula has the best name and the best taste.
Yeah. So yeah, she loved it. And that was, I don't think there's any lightning lane for it. Not that it mattered. You just kind of walk right on. I think my brother's daughter, while we were on that, was just hanging out. She got some free cotton candy from a cast member for having like her first visit pin, which we had picked up when we checked in at the Poly.
Did the whole group have that, or no? Because you had visited previously a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, I guess, care to ask. I just, when we got there, we got the lays for the kids, and I asked if they could get buttons too. So we made sure at least all the kids had those, but I don't think any of the adults got them. But not that we requested them. So yeah, we finished up with Tron. I went and bought cotton candy for my kids. Of course, they see Malin that got the cotton candy. They want their cotton candy too. So I picked up cotton candy, I think over in the Dumbo area while people were doing the teacups that we missed out on earlier. I tried a caramel butter bar. Those are, I think, the ones that are over in the German pavilion at Epcot. I had heard good things, and I just saw that they had them there. So I tried one of those. It was pretty good, pretty sweet. And then, the rest of the afternoon was sort of just knocking out rides. We stayed pretty efficient and on track. We went to Seven Dwarves next, and that was at 2:13. I think it was a posted 50-minute wait, but again, didn't feel like much of a wait with lightning lanes.
Who in the group? Did everybody in the group go on that one?
I think most. I think we had almost all the adults. My mom, I think, hung back with Penny, the 10-month-old, my 10-month-old niece, and then I think the two littler kids, the two 6-year-old girls, my daughter and niece, we're going to go on roller coasters the rest of the trip. I think the surprise was Wesley, my sister's 5-year-old son, just loved every ride and roller coaster that he could do. And so he was 44 inches tall exactly. And so that kind of put him into a good category for going on to a lot of these rides. I think the only thing at the parks we were going to that he couldn't do was Tron, maybe. I think that was the only one that he was not tall enough for.
Rock and Roller Coaster?
Oh, yeah. Which, is that Hollywood Studios?
Which you didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't do.
So, yeah, that was a great ride. That was in the top 2 or 3 for my daughter, Olive. She's the 9-year-old. She loved it. That's just a really fun roller coaster, not too crazy. And then we just sort of started navigating towards Adventureland. Did Peter Pan's Flight 236. Again, I think it was a 50-minute wait. We did Small World at 2:59. That also, surprisingly had a pretty long wait. That took us back to the back of the castle area and the merry-go-round area. We skipped Haunted Mansion. I knew my girls, at least, and most of the kids weren't going to be into Haunted Mansion. And I actually didn't think it was going to be open during this trip. I thought they were going to be closed, but obviously it wasn't. And then, ended up getting to Adventureland. And again, we were pretty efficient over there. Did Jungle Cruise at 3:52. Did the Swiss Family Robinson Tree at 4:14. Did Pirates at 4:24. And then I handed out ponchos for people that wanted to do Tiana's. I just purchased some cheap ones at Amazon before the trip. I think enough for everybody could have 2 each. And so anyone that wanted to do Tiana's kind of headed that way. This was the other hiccup we had on this day. We had the electric scooters for my parents, and the one that my mom was using stopped working. It was just beeping, and it wouldn't go on. And so some cast members were trying to help her. They're somewhat, familiar, I think, with these scooters, even if they're through a third party, but they couldn't figure it out either. And so instead of going to Tiana's, I went with her to try to sort that out. So I was on a phone call with their support. And we kind of tried everything. And in the end, he thought it was an issue with like the fuse that we were just not going to be able to fix. And so that was a little frustrating because it just took time out of the day to try to sort that out.
Yeah, and you have a bunch of other people that have, want to do stuff. What was the resolution to the scooter issue then?
They're just like, well, we can't do anything, and I can't come pick it up in the park, so you got to get it outside of the park. I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. We started pushing it, but the wheels start locking up after like 10 paces. And so I'm just like, this is not going to work. So we talked to a cast member somewhere around the merry-go-round, and they got a different cast member, I think more of like a managerial position. She was super helpful, just kind of tried to get it working as well with some of the basic tricks, and then just sort of offered to get it out of the park for us. We were like pretty close to Small World, so they said they could take it out back behind Small World, which would be then outside of the park, and they should have access for trucks to get there.
Oh my God, you couldn't be further from the front back there.
Yeah, it was going to be a mess to push it out to the front gates. So I'm really glad, they didn't have any obligation to help us get it out. It was sort of not their issue, but they were still very helpful, and I just let the people know that's where it was going to be, and that I was told they should have access to pick it up, and they just said they would refund us for that rental. They offered to like deliver a new one, but I think we got a feel for it that, my parents don't have any like direct mobility issues. It was just the idea of these long park days were a little daunting. And so I kind of felt at that point we could probably manage with one scooter and just kind of take turns as like somebody's feeling tired. And that sort of like worked out perfectly. Just getting around the monorail and buses and stuff, it's a little less cumbersome if we just have one scooter and then like these 3 double strollers.
Yes, you have a lot of wheels.
Yeah. So it worked out fine. It was a little bit of a bummer just because this was this side quest that, took 45 minutes to an hour just to figure out. But yeah, it's in the end not that big of a deal. So yeah, people went on Tiana's while that was happening, and then that was approaching. Yeah, somewhere between 5 o'clock is when I was working on that scooter issue, and then most people were kind of heading back to the front of the park by 6, with the idea that we're probably just going to take a short break back at the Poly, which just like hopping on the monorail is pretty quick and easy to get back there. The only like hiccup through all the like podcasts and research, I don't ever remember hearing about a resort monorail versus like an express monorail. So. And there's probably signage. I don't know. I just started kind of following the crowd, and almost everybody's like going to the express monorail. And so we get to the like transportation center, and I'm just like, hey, you guys, this is like super close. We could probably just get off here. And everyone's just kind of like non-committal. And so we didn't get off. And then the next like announcement is like, next stop is at the Magic Kingdom. And we're just like, okay, well, this is not the right monorail to be on. So small hiccup or delay there. We just got to do the loop one more time. We stayed on. We didn't want to switch to the other monorail. We just made sure to get off at the transportation center, and it's a very short walk from there.
Did you have any trouble finding the path from the TTC to your building?
No, I mean, I just pulled up a quick like Google Maps of like where that was to make sure we were like on the right track. But no, it was pretty straightforward, I think.
To me, that's one of the perks of staying at the Polynesian, is that you really can take either monorail and get back.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might even be faster just to get off at the transportation center and not having to go through like the lobby, or it's at least very equivalent. So for, I think, the rest of the trip, we still mostly took the express monorail. We would just make sure to get off where we were supposed to. I texted my brother-in-law, who was hanging behind with his son Wesley, kind of trying to get ahead of him having the same issue. And he was like, just as he was pulling up to the transportation center, he was also on the wrong monorail. So they were at least able to get off where they were supposed to. So yeah, I think we ended up still getting back to the Polynesian right at, I think, let's see, 6 o'clock. And so the kids just kind of took a break, watching a movie in the room. I went down with a couple adults to the hot tub quick, just at like the close pool. And this wasn't much of a break. We at least knew we needed to get back for the fireworks. But I was sort of asking and pushing the kids to see if they wanted to see this, like catch a little bit of this like starlight parade, which I think even if they didn't, I was probably going to go check it out by myself. But yeah, I think at least 4 of the 5 kids wanted to do it. So it was sort of a rush to get ready. We didn't like leave our room until 7:25 for like the 7:45 start. And we had like a little bit of a delay at the monorail, but we still got in. We caught at least 10 minutes of the parade. So that's, I think, most of it, or maybe half of it, something like that.
Did you watch it from the front?
Yeah, just at like the front of the park, because there was, at that point, there was probably no other, we weren't going to be able to like navigate much further. So we just stayed right at that like central hub. But yeah, it was really cool. I think, at least I know my girls thought it was really fun to see. And then we just sort of followed the procession like up Main Street. You can just kind of hop on, behind the parade and just follow them up. I think that's probably what I would do if I was going with like a smaller group to watch the fireworks, is just kind of follow that up and then find a spot from there, and you'll just be, maybe waiting 45, 50 minutes or so before the start of fireworks. There were a few people in our group that had not, because they were at Cinderella's Royal Table, they didn't get to go on Space Mountain yet. So they kept moving forward as soon as we got there to check that off the list before everybody kind of came to meet up for fireworks at like we did the post party dessert show. So I just kind of texted, after we checked in, I texted everybody of kind of where to check in for that and the timing of everything. We went to that, like the lawn, the fenced-in lawn area, probably like 8:15, 8:20 or so. So we were like still plenty early. It was not busy in there. I think there was maybe one other family by the time we got there. And even at the start of the show, there weren't very many people doing like the dessert parties this night. But yeah, the fireworks are so cool. I think I initially talked about we were going to watch the fireworks from the Polynesian beach on our first night there. And I sort of like intentionally decided not to bring that up with the group. I was, I think, talking and coming to the realization that nobody really knew what the fireworks were like at Magic Kingdom. And so that was worth it, in that it was just like a surprise for everybody. Like nobody knew about like the castle projections. So taking like a big group of first timers to see that when they just had no idea and just kind of expecting like some fireworks was like a really cool experience. Just getting their like reactions and responses for seeing that for the first time.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better.
Yeah.
As far as fireworks go.
It was, the sun was down obviously, and so it was getting a little cooler. Like we were probably approaching like 40 degrees again, which with no sun, that's on the cooler side. Still, we were just like content to have a light jacket or a sweater. And I think everybody was just riding like a little bit of a high from the fireworks, so it just didn't bother us. And then we got our table for the post party for dessert. I don't know if this is how common it is that there's not very many people at the dessert parties, but we had like our big table for 18 right in the middle. And then I counted, I think there was 3 other tables like totaling 15 people. So we just made up the majority of the people at the post party.
That is nuts. And I would say that's not super common. but I'm happy for you because you didn't have to compete with very many people for a view of fireworks or desserts.
Yeah, and I think it just made it that much better because the kids just felt like they had like free reign to like run up to this like unlimited dessert thing. They just like, again, I was kind of on the fence about doing this as we talked about earlier, but it was like totally worth it for them. They just like loved being able to kind of, stay up late and eat some dessert, and it, added to it that it felt like it was like this private thing because there was hardly anyone else there. I don't think they prepare it any differently if they're suspecting to have low numbers, because they still had like, seemed like 50 of like everything on this like full buffet, which is like, there's no way we're going to be able to eat anywhere close to all of this. But yeah, it was super fun. It was an awesome way to kind of finish that day in what was probably like our favorite park day. We were like sitting down at the table, at the other end of the table, like my sister-in-law and brother were talking about like giving me a toast just to kind of say like thank you. My sister-in-law is like, well, I'll do it. And she stands up and she just says like to Jamison, and then just starts like tearing up and like sits back down. And so they're like bursting out laughing. My brother's laughing at her, just like, what was that? She's like, I couldn't do it. But, I get the gist of it, even without saying anything. But yeah, it was a super fun day.
That's a testament to how the trip had gone so far.
Yeah, for sure. I think we could have stayed till 10:30, but, at 10:15, it was getting a little chilly. And so we started walking back. I think my brother-in-law and 5-year-old Wesley were the only ones that stayed behind to like close down the buffet because he said he wanted to stay. And at that point, it was just like, yeah, you could do whatever you want.
Closing down the buffet is not.
Yeah, I mean, he was such a trooper that day.
That's so cute.
Yeah, so we're all on the monorail except those two. And we were kind of talking about Wesley and how surprised we were and how much he just like every single ride or roller coaster. He's like, can we do that again? And he's just like saying yes to everything. And how, he never took a nap the whole day. And he was just like, a trooper the whole day. And then as we're like leaving, they come and stop right in front of our like cart. And he's just like passed out in the stroller, like as we're talking about it. So it's pretty funny timing.
That's so fun. I know we often talk about how you don't know what kids are going to be into when you're there, but you also don't know the ones that are going to be really into it more than you expected. And what a nice surprise. Yeah,
it was like he'd never been on a roller coaster in his life. And so he was nervous, like going on the first one, and nervous almost going on any ride. But in the end, he'd love it. Even though on all the ride photos, he like looks terrified. He still just like loved all of them. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that is really cute. And what a marathon of a Magic Kingdom day, but it sounds like it went really well.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of intentional. We're just like, well, we're going to stay up late knowing that like tomorrow is going to be an off day where we're not going to the parks. So I think we got, back in bed at like 11 p.m. My daughter Lula asked if she could stay up a little bit later to play with her Minnie Mouse. And so I'm like laying next to her and she's just kind of whispering and talking to herself for 20 minutes playing with Minnie Mouse. Then we took a picture as she like falls asleep, just like hugging Minnie Mouse. So it was like a pretty cute way to like end this like really fun day.
Okay. Before I start crying, let's talk about the next day. So it's probably good after a couple of busy park days that you did have a non-park day, but you still have plenty of plans.
Yeah, I mean, again, I kind of went back and forth on this. It just seemed like for our first trip, this was like the safest approach. I didn't want people to feel burnt out, kind of forced into fun, and have another day to kind of sleep in after a late night. So, yeah, I just texted, again, the group, the plan for the next day, which was just to meet back at the monorail a little before 9, I think 8:45 we said, for our 1900 Park Fair reservation that was at 9:20. I was up early again. So my dad and I went and got coffee at about 6 a.m. just in the lobby. I think every morning I was at least in like the Poly lobby before they start playing music. They always turn the music on like right at 7 a.m. But yeah, I mean, it's such an awesome place to like enjoy cup of coffee, just kind of hanging out and waiting for the sun to come up, and you see the castle out the window. So it's, I didn't sleep a whole lot, but I couldn't really complain. So yeah, everyone was punctual. We got over to 1900 Prec Fair in like the bottom lobby by like 9 o'clock. So we were a little early, but I'd always try to kind of, as you recommended, like check in person about 20 minutes before our reservations, just to kind of say that we're together. And they always have that caveat that they can't promise anything, but I guess from my experience, they just always try to make it work. I think that ends up leading to a little bit more of a wait probably to get your table, because they're just kind of waiting for things to open up. But that was fine with us. We were there a little bit early, and I don't think we got called till like 9:40 to sit down. So we're just kind of hanging out, chatting in the lobby for a while. I think this ended up being my favorite meal of the trip. I just like the ambiance of 1900 Prec Fair and the Grand Floridian in general. And then especially for kids, there's just like kind of anything they could want for breakfast. And overall, it's just like better than I thought it was going to be for just like a breakfast buffet. And of course, with like the characters coming by the tables, that just kind of adds to it. And we were all, in one kind of long booth and tables to the side. So it was always funny when the characters would come up and they'd just be like, whoa, this is like the whole group in this like section. So yeah, we ate way too much food and had a good time. And then we walked back on the trails. I don't know, probably like a 15-minute walk or so along the beach path there. And it was, I think, maybe a high of like 65 that day. So I don't know. For some people, that's probably like on the cooler side for like a pool day. For us, it just like didn't matter. Like once you're in the pool is fine. It would be a little chilly like once you get out, but that didn't stop us. We were probably at the pool for 3 hours or so.
I feel like you can always tell where people are from, because if they're in the pool, they're probably from somewhere very snowy.
Yep. And yeah, we could tell we were in the minority because it was not busy there. But it was cool. They do like the pool activities for like an hour and a half. So like at least 3 of the girls were just engaged in that the whole time. And then it worked out well. So everybody was there, and we like alternated kind of kid duty versus going to Trader Sam's grotto, which was also just like super cool to see and have a couple drinks in there. So I think that was right around noon. I put in a request for 6 people, and it said like a 75-minute wait. And I think we got the text like 5 minutes later that it was open.
So were you inside or outside?
We were inside. Yeah, I forget there's 2 names. There's Trader Sam's Grotto and Terrace. Is that the difference?
Something like that? I think so. But it's the grotto or the inside that a lot of people want. So
yeah. So that's where we. That was.
But
like
it was
intentional.
5 minutes.
Yeah. So again, this was on like I really wanted to do at some point while we're there, especially if you're like staying at the Polynesian. I think you'd regret not checking it out. So this just worked out like perfectly for timing. So yeah, we got in right away. I went with just the other dads and guys on the trip, and we got our 2 drinks, and I think we got to see every little special effect, throughout at least once, throughout the 45 minutes to an hour or so that we were there. And then, yeah, we swapped and went back to the pool while the girls put in their reservation. I think, again, it was kind of the same thing. They maybe only had to wait 10 minutes or so for it to be ready. But yeah, that's like such a cool place just to have a couple drinks. It's just like a really fun vibe. So glad we all had a chance to see it. So yeah, I think next on the list was just going to Disney Springs, because we had our boathouse reservation at 5 o'clock. And so we're sort of just like playing it by ear for how long people wanted to swim versus when we wanted to go. I think the only other thing on our to-do list was Disney Springs. That was going to be kind of our souvenir shopping at like the big Disney store there. So this is the first time taking a bus. I texted the plan to meet out at 3:30 out front, and everybody was very punctual. I think the bus pulled up at like 3:31. So it's just perfect timing. And I don't know if buses will like wait for them to fill up at all at these spots, but that was just a non-issue for us because as soon as we got on, we would just like fill up at least half the bus anyway. And so they would just leave. So yeah, we had, I think, a lot of good luck with the 3 or 4 bus rides that we had.
And you're occupying one ECV space and a lot of folded up stroller space.
Yeah. Like I feel a little bit bad on all the space that we take up with like the strollers and the scooter. But yeah, it was really just like a non-issue. So yeah, I think we got there, right around 4:00 or so. So we had maybe a little bit before. We had about an hour before the reservation to just get a little shopping in. And I went ahead and checked in early at the boathouse again, just to let them know we were together. I think our table was ready pretty close or shortly after 5:00 for this one. And they had kind of one big table. And then kind of at the end of that, where it met a little off to the side, a booth that like fit the rest of us. So we were not technically all together, but at least like very close, which like worked out perfectly. We did seating. We had like all of the adults at this table of 12. And then my wife and I went to the booth and just took all the kids with us, which, we love hanging out with the kids and the cousins and nieces and nephews. So we still had a good time and everybody was great. It was like an hour and a half meal, but we didn't have any issues with like any of the kids the whole time. Super good food.
You said it was an hour and a half meal, but you did have a T-Rex cafe thing.
Yeah, so it's timing it like a little bit close. We were asking for our check as it was approaching like 6:30 just to make sure that we could get over there. And you just did like the, payment from your table with like a QR code. So yeah, it was like a little bit rushed towards the end just to make sure we paid and could get out of there so we could get over. But overall, it's still like the timing worked out pretty perfectly. The food was good. I think probably my favorite thing, like single thing that I ate the trip was just those. You've probably been to the boathouse before. They give you those like the little warm, soft honey buns at the start. Those were just like super good. I could have just eaten those for my meal, I think. But
there's a reason the boathouse is so popular.
Yeah.
Good food.
Yeah, it was great. And then, I think it was a nice time, at least for the rest of the adults, to have some like non-kid time and just have like a good time. And then, I went over, I think my wife joined, the adult table, and my brother and I took the kids over to the T-Rex cafe, which like worked out perfectly. I think we were in and out in like 30 minutes because we didn't need menus. We knew what we were ordering. We were just getting dessert there. It's just kind of an excuse for the kids to see the space in there, which is pretty cool. And there was like a shared dessert, some like volcano chocolate ice cream and cake thing, which they just kind of shared and had fun doing that. I think some of the rest of the party started joining somewhat shortly after we got there just to kind of say hi and check it out. And so I ended up leaving and went with some of the others to go I'd mentioned wanted to get the affogato, which was at this new-ish, I think, place right in front of like the boathouse. So we walked back there and got that. I did check out like Gideon's a couple times because it's kind of just around the corner there. Like when I first checked in and then afterwards. And there was a line. It was, I don't know, probably 50 people. I would assume it moves pretty quick, but I just, didn't really feel like waiting in line for some cookies.
Cookie?
I know that. Yeah. I'm sure they're good. But so I ended up not doing that. But it was overall like a pretty relaxed day with just breakfast and pool and dinner. We got home by 8:00 or so and tried to do a early at bedtime as we could that night, just knowing that next morning was kind of the only time that I was going to be pushing people to wake up early and like stay on task. And so that rolls into Wednesday, which is probably the 21st, I think.
It was Wednesday, January 21st. And it was another full park day. So, but this one was going to be with hopping. So I'm interested to hear about that.
This was the one I was like most nervous for, in that we were just trying to do a lot. And again, I didn't really know how it was going to go. I had this idea in my head, but this was sort of like putting these plans to fruition for the first time. So yeah, I told people to be at the bus stop out front at 7:00. And so we were up pretty early, but everyone was punctual. Again, we were right at 7:00, and the bus was, literally pulling up for Animal Kingdom as we were walking out the front doors. So we just timed it perfectly. And yeah, I think we were walking through the front gates of Animal Kingdom right at 7:30. And I had multi-lane reservations for that day. And I didn't book the Everest coaster knowing that's where we were going to go to first. And that like works out pretty well for a plan because everybody just goes to Flight of Passage. So there was just like nobody at that side of the park. And so with some of the kids and grandparents, we were just kind of walking around the Tree of Life while anyone that wanted to do the coaster could. Some people went on it twice. Wesley, the 5-year-old, again, just wanted to do every ride over and over if he could. So, when there was no line at all, it was easy just to go on it like a couple times.
Yeah, that's a great plan for a kid like that.
Yeah, it was great.
Go on it before the Flight of Passage people moved to that side of the park.
For sure. And so it timed up pretty perfectly that crew met back in front of like Zootopia at the little show, which was just like our first lightning lane. Again, not that there's probably a benefit, especially at that early morning, to having a lightning lane. It was just more of start using them so that I could start booking things at Epcot for the afternoon. And I had known by looking at kind of how lightning lanes are looking the day before that my like initial plan wasn't gonna work. So I kind of had to pivot the plan in my head of what Epcot was gonna look like. And I think the main difference was when I was looking at lightning lanes before the trip started, I thought it was gonna be pretty easy to book, Remy's and Frozen and Test Track, even for like early afternoon, if we got through these lightning lanes pretty quickly at Animal Kingdom. But then the Festival of the Arts started, and that like adjusted the crowds at Epcot, which I didn't really think about or anticipate. So I knew that it was going to be different than what I had initially planned in my head in terms of like the timing and availability of some of those things at Epcot. But yeah, we checked in right at 8:05 for Zootopia, and like I think I did Frozen first because it was like the earliest option at Epcot, and I think that was for 2:45. I was initially hoping for like earlier in the afternoon, but that was just the earliest I could do it. And then our next lightning lane was over at the Safari at 8:50. We had a little bit of time to stop for some like breakfast and coffee at, is it like Tamu Tamu? Is that right? And so we're kind of waiting out there, eating some, Mickey cinnamon rolls, breakfast sandwiches, coffee before we could check in for the 8:50 Safari. And then as soon as I had that, I booked Remy's at, let's see, 4:45. No, 3:45.
I have to say, with such a big group, I'm happy you were able to get it. Period.
Yeah. I mean, I know on a busier day, if you're going on spring break, I don't think it's a realistic option to try to get some of those like more sought after rides in the afternoon. This was like I think lower to moderate week in terms of crowds. If we'd gone the week before, it would have been like pretty easy just when I was looking at sellout times. But yeah, we were just going to have to kind of change our plan a little bit, but we at least got those like 2 rides that were like highest up on my list of like priority at Epcot. Yeah, the Safari was really cool. The kids loved it. I mean, I loved it. It was really fun kind of going through and seeing those like animals up close without, it's different than being at a zoo when there's always like fences and barriers. It just like feels a little more personal. And we had some cool experiences seeing like, we had to stop for a while because a rhino was just like right at the front of the truck. So we had to just kind of sit and wait till he kind of meandered and walked like right by. So yeah, it was really fun seeing all that. And we got off And I was hoping to squeeze in the Lion King show like while we were right there. So I kind of walked ahead to kind of just talk to cast members to kind of say, hey, we have a group of like 18. Is this going to be like busy? Are we going to get on the show? And they just kind of encouraged me to show up get there as soon as possible, but that it should be fine. Because I didn't want to use a lightning lane for it. Again, not that it's typically necessary. But yeah, I think we got there, sat down like 15 minutes early. So we're kind of waiting for the show to start. And it was really cool. And so that was the first showing of the day at 10 o'clock. And so we were done by 10:30. I think our lightning lane for Navi was expiring at 10:50. I don't think we quite made it before 10:50. But again, there's like the 2-hour buffer. So it was kind of like my first time
I know it
testing
stresses
that.
people. It stresses people out, but it works.
So it made me like a little bit nervous, but I'm just going to trust the system that it's going to be fine. And yeah, it was fine. And we like pushed the system a little bit more like once we got to Epcot. But yeah, I thought the Navi River journey was really cool. Maybe because of like my younger daughter, Lula, that wasn't into like coasters and screens. That was something that was just like perfect for her. So it was like fun to be able to ride on that with her.
Gentle.
Yeah, just like cool stuff to see. Exactly. And then we had our single pass for Flight of Passage that started at 10:30. Again, I think we checked in a little bit late for that. It was maybe 11:45. I think the posted time was 60 minutes, but that was pretty quick. One of my regrets of the trip was taking Lula and then my brother's daughter at the same age on that ride. I thought she was sort of on the fence. She was like excited about the idea of that ride, but then it was like crying about it the night before because she was nervous, but still didn't want to miss it. And so I was really on the fence of whether like she should do it or not. And I was just like, we're just going to try this out. And it didn't go well. She didn't like it. She was just kind of closing her eyes and, whimpering a little bit. She was fine just to get through it, but it made it like difficult for me to try to enjoy the show when I'm just like worried about her and kind of talking her through it, which again, I'm not like a huge ride screen guy, it turns out anyway. So I think that one was like more tolerable and it was like really cool how they do that. I think I would have been fine if, I had a chance to enjoy it a little bit more, but
it's tricky. It's tricky with kids because they're very much on their own in the ride vehicle.
I was next to her and so I could reach out and hold her hand at least, but she was just kind of turned around and like looking away the whole time and asking when it was going to be over. So that was a bit of a bummer. My other daughter, Olive, that was her favorite ride of the whole trip. She loved it. She tends to get is like a little prone to like nausea and getting car sickness, but she loved like all these screen rides. And again, she thought that one was so cool. And they do like a really good job of this like flight simulation. It's pretty unreal, but yeah, I think we were through all of our lightning lanes then for that day, right around noon. And we sort of took a little break there and had some snacks and bathroom break and kind of checked in with the group to see what we wanted to do. The only other ride my daughter Olive really wanted to do before we left was like a water ride, like the river rapids, which I knew we wouldn't need a lightning lane for because it was nicer that day. I think it was a high of 70 or so, but still there was no line at Cali River Rapids.
I was going to say this time of year.
Yeah. So we went there. We had a full, at least, boat. Everybody had ponchos on, so it was cool to do. My Olive still got like soaked even through a poncho, which I think she just, thought was kind of cool that she got off this ride. She's like drenched. She was just like loving it. And then, everybody else was kind of getting a snack or some coffee. And then I texted the group saying, let's meet at the front of the park at 1. I think my brother and kids stopped at a souvenir shop, but we got out there right at like 1:05. I think we had a little bit of a wait for the bus, but we ended up it's a pretty short bus ride. I think it was maybe 10 minutes or so. I think it was maybe quicker than I thought. I think we got just before 1:30 is when we were arriving at Epcot, even like a little bit of a wait for the bus to show up. And then I didn't use that third lightning lane because I kind of knew as soon as I made the first lightning lane that day that test track wasn't going to happen. It was already at like 6 p.m. and that was just a lower priority compared to the other two. And so I kind of assumed that I wasn't going to get it, and I didn't want to keep like refreshing on my phone with the hope that it was going to, they were going to open new slots. I just didn't want to deal with that and compete with people that were using, automated booking systems and such. So I just started booking less sought after rides as like early as possible, starting at like 1 o'clock, knowing that I could just start stacking some of those. Again, not that it's always necessary, but even, showing up for, Spaceship Earth right when you walk in, it was probably like, I think at 15 or 20 minutes. So it's at least something to have, save a little bit of time if you have Lightning Pass for it.
I'm a huge fan of lightning lanes for those rides because you can cut, 15 minutes or 20 minutes off of your wait time.
Yeah.
And you tap in, you book another one. So you can really churn.
Yeah. So I was able to book a lot of the front of the park stuff for some of those, less sought after rides just to kind of make sure we were like staying efficient. And so we went over to the Moana World of Water after that. And then we were doing the Nemo ride and we did Turtle Talk with Crush. And again, almost everybody, of course, is able to do these rides. I think some of the grandparents and adults were getting a little tired or hungry. So they kind of went on their own to sit down somewhere and get some food and a drink while we were just kind of helping the kids through some of these more chill rides. With the kind of next texted plan was to meet in front of Guardians at 4 o'clock. So I had our lightning lane for that, I think, booked starting at 3:30. I had to add on one for Wesley, the 5-year-old that wants to do like any roller coaster. He wasn't initially booked for that. So I think I was able to get it that morning still after we realized he was going to want to do Guardians. Oddly enough, I think maybe with our, dining schedules or other things, I couldn't get him for the same time as us. So I think I booked his at like 1 o'clock. So, or maybe 1:30. Either way, we were like pushing the expiration of his like 3-hour kind of time frame. But yeah, we got on pretty quickly with again, it doesn't feel like much of a wait with the pre-show and all of that. That's just like such an engaging experience. And I had like Everybody Wants to Rule the World in September as like my 1A, 1B for like what I wanted to hear. And we got September for our song, which is just like in any setting, it's hard for me not to hear that song and just like smile and be happy. And so, yeah, it's tough for me to pick between that and Hagrid's of my favorite ride, but I got to ride next to my wife on that. And so that was fun because we didn't get to do too many rides together. We were usually with the kids.
Was Wesley's mind blown?
Yeah, it was like the same thing as every ride. He was like nervous before going on. He just loved it. And like he was convinced we were actually in space, during like the pre-show. And so seeing his face of just like a mixture of like awe and like a little bit of fear.
How old is he?
Like, he's 5.
5.
Yeah. But yeah, he was again talking about being nervous for it and then just loved it and wanted to do it again as soon as we were out.
I just love the juxtaposition of believing you're in space, but also being willing to go on such big rides.
Yeah.
It's
it
like
was awesome.
he's got one foot in like big kid land and one foot in little kid land.
Yeah, it was so great.
Cute.
So yeah, that was such a cool ride. It's just hard not to be so happy and like smiling the whole time you're on. I was a little bit nervous because of like the spinning and the screens that I hadn't done like so well on, but that ride was totally fine for me.
Now, did anybody in the group have a hard time with it?
No, I think my wife's mom, I think she probably wouldn't go on it again. Her ride photo is pretty funny. She was just like, I think probably not loving it or at least nervous the whole time. And she was pretty good at roller coasters otherwise most of the trip. And then my father-in-law hadn't done very well in like screen rides, so he decided to skip that one. But otherwise, yeah, everybody loved it. It was probably right at the top of favorite ride for most people, I'd say.
That's great because it's either at the top or the bottom, and it was such a big group that you
never
had,
know.
like you had.
Right.
I thought maybe you would have a mix, so I'm glad most people
or everybody liked it.
Yep. So yeah, we finished with that. Everybody was just like feeling so good after that ride. We stopped at like one of the like generic cafes right there just to have some food. And that's where the kids were eating some, I guess, early dinner. I forgot to mention, like, when we were at Animal Kingdom, when I realized we were going to have to kind of pivot on my initial plan at Epcot, I decided just to cancel. I kind of confirmed with everybody, but I canceled our dinner reservations, just knowing the timing of the rides that were available and when our dinner reservation was, it was going to be hard to make that work.
So you canceled both Space 220 and Beer Garden.
Yeah. Yep. Again, also kind of saying this is our last park day. Let's just be as efficient as possible, and we can get some food like on the World Showcase, so we started that right at like 5:00, which is not a whole lot of time, of course, to like do the showcase. I think as an adult, if I went back, that would be my favorite park. I was not necessarily like expecting much or excited about it, but like once you're there and you see like how they put it together, it's like really cool to see that of all the different countries in person. So I would love to go back and just kind of spend a day, you know, eating more food and kind of experiencing those countries a little bit more. We were on like a pretty tight schedule because our 3-hour mark for Remy's was expiring at 6:45. And so we were starting the showcase at 5, and I just said, okay, no matter what, we got to get to Remy's at 6:45, which I looked in the app. It said it was like a 10 to 15 minute walk from like Norway's when I looked at it. But, you know, you look across where like the Eiffel Tower is, it looks a lot farther away than that. So yeah, I was a little bit anxious about getting there in time. And then when we started, Remy's was down when we kind of started the World Showcase. So that was kind of a bummer because I think that was probably the ride like I maybe like hyped up to my girls the most that I thought they'd really love. And so I could tell my daughter Olive was like feeling a little sad that we might not be able to. And then I was thinking too, like, well, maybe we just take our time going through the countries, and once we get there, we kind of explain that, you know, we missed our slot because the ride was down. Can we still get on? And they'd be like, oh, by the way, there's 18 of us. So that was kind of my plan. But we stopped in Mexico, was our first like main pit stop. People went and got margaritas inside, not outside, as is like the general recommendation. It was really cool seeing the kind of, I don't know if it's like an Aztec temple, but being inside and seeing like the restaurant in there. It's just like a really cool space.
But are you saying you went to La Cava de Tequila inside?
Yes.
And there wasn't a line for that?
Oh, there was a line. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a pretty long line, but they moved through pretty quickly. I don't know, probably took 20 minutes or so to get some margaritas, and we got some chips and guacamole, which I don't know. I wasn't expecting a whole lot in terms of food in general. Through Disney, that guacamole was very basic, but it was super good. I was just hungry because I feel like a lot of these park days I wasn't eating a lot because I was just like so focused on what we were doing. But so yeah, we were off to like a tough start with this World Showcase because we'd gotten through like all the way to Mexico, which is not very far. And we'd spent, 45 minutes already. And then we hung out in Norway a little bit. My mom was excited to see like the Akershus building. Her like great grandfather like lived in that building in Norway as like a child, and I think was I don't know, or worked there, something like that. So there was some like family connection. So she was just kind of excited to see like this like architecture in person. And then we had our Frozen lightning lane, so we were able to do that still when we were there. Again, it was certainly past our window, but I thought that was a really cool ride. I know it's getting like refurbished soon for like animatronics right now. Okay. But yeah, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was really cool to see, and all the different rooms and like the songs. And again, probably partially because my 6-year-old Lula like loved that ride. It was like the perfect amount of like, seeing characters and songs that she knew, and just like the little slides, not like true drops. Like even Penny, the 10-month-old, can go on that ride. So yeah, she loved that. And so We didn't take too many other stops. It was just we split off a little bit. People would go ahead if there was a country they wanted to see, and we kind of share snacks. I stopped still in Germany to that, like, whatever the caramel place is, and got some of the caramel corn and like the snickerdoodle cookie sandwich.
You mean you don't want to try to pronounce it?
Yeah. I don't even know if I remember what it's called, but
Cooch.
Yeah. Caramel place is a little easier.
Smell it from Mexico.
Yeah. So, and I think I'd seen a couple places people talking about like the cookie sandwiches in there, which were like very sweet, but it was really good. Mm-hmm. It's just like a lot of those places feel like very authentic, or they do a good job of presenting it that way at least. So yeah, it would be fun to go back and actually experience each of those countries like a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then I think I don't remember what country we were in. I was in line to get a coffee right by, I don't know, there's like a smokehouse I think people were hanging out in front of. And that's when I checked and noticed that like Remy's was back up. And then at that point we had like 15 or 20 minutes before like our 3-hour mark was going to expire. And so I like sent this alert to the group thread because everybody was spread out a little bit. And I was like, you got to drop what you're doing. Like, we got to get to France like within the next 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. So that's added to the excitement of it a little bit. Everybody's rushing to try to get there. As soon as we got close, my daughter Olive and my brother's 9-year-old Gemma like ran ahead to get like scanned in, and you could just see them as soon as it turned green. They're just like jumping, like throwing fists in the air. I think we made it with, 7 minutes to spare, something like that. But we all got on. That was like such a cool ride. Even just like as soon as you walk in, the cheese carts just dancing around on the floor. I don't really even know like the technology behind it, but it's just so cool to see. And again, both my daughters like that. It was, I think Lula, that was probably ended up being her favorite ride, and Olive loved it too. And it's just like a perfect way to finish our like ride experiences for the day, or at least so we thought. I had been like stacking some lightning lanes that we missed at like the front of the park for, I'm gonna forget names, Living with the Land. I think there was one other, but at that point I think we were like feeling pretty tired, and we hung out in France for a while and got a crepe, and some of the group went to Morocco to get some food. The rest of us were getting like fish and chips. We sat down on the curb and had a pint and had some fish and chips. And they were kind of walking back towards the front of the park, right on like the central thoroughfare as you're like walking to the big ball. And at that point, it's all like lit up in like rainbow. It's just like a really cool way to like walk out of there for the first time. Made like one other pit stop to like fill up a popcorn bucket, because as soon as you like smell that popcorn, it's like hard not to stop anyway. And one more souvenir shop, I think, for one of the girls that wanted something. And so we sort of just are hanging around at the front of the park before we hopped on the monorail. And then, we sort of started talking about what the plan was for the rest of the night. Let's see, what time did we get on the monorail? That was like 8:15. Or we were back by 8:15 at the Poly. So again, pretty convenient, quick monorail back from Epcot. Mm-hmm. And then we were just sort of all sitting in the hallway at the Polynesian and having a drink, trying to figure out what we wanted to do. The 2 6-year-old girls had been pining to do some like night swimming. So again, it was probably cold at that point, but it didn't matter. So my wife and brother-in-law, I think, took the kids to go night swimming. My father and mother-in-law were kind of calling it in, so they went back to the room to watch Ratatouille. My dad walked down to the beach to watch like the fireworks from there. And then the rest of us, which was like my sister, my brother, our 2 9-year-olds, and then of course 5-year-old Wesley, went and headed back to Magic Kingdom, because this was the night that it was open till 11 for us.
Extended evening theme park hours.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So we left our room at 9:00, and the monorail was there as soon as we got there. I think doors were closing. We had to like run to get on. We got scolded for running onto our monorail. But of course, we got there super quickly. My sister was the only one that missed fireworks because she was doing bedtime for baby Penny that night. And so she at least got to catch like the last maybe 7 minutes of the show. And we just watched it from the stairs up top at like the railroad area. So she at least got to see some of it. She got to see Tinkerbell fly. It was, the lights and projections aren't as cool from that. Like, I know some people watch there because it's like an early exit, but being closer to the park or closer to the castle is certainly like a better experience for sure for the fireworks.
Yes. Now that you have the dessert party area to compare to.
Yeah. And then it was cool. We sort of had this like renewed energy after that, as like there's this like exodus of everybody like leaving the park, but then it's us. We're like kind of fighting against them to try to get up Main Street, which is like not an easy feat. But
I always say you're like a salmon swimming upstairs.
Yeah, especially with like, we at least brought one double stroller that the three kids were sitting in. But yeah, it was sort of fun knowing that we're like, we still got a little bit of time to like enjoy these parks. We went to Haunted Mansion because we had missed that, of course, earlier. We thought like maybe the girls would be okay with it, but my brother's daughter didn't want to do it. I took Olive on it, and so we're like in that first room, and I could tell she's nervous. She's just kind of putting her head into her aunt's like lap, and I was like, Olive, we don't have to do this. We can just walk out if you want, because I feel like I'd learned my lesson with Lula on Flight of Passage. And she's like, yeah, I want to go. And so the door was still open, and we're just like walking to the exit, and then like the voice comes on, and it says like, there's no turning back now. And then the doors like shut in our face as I was like putting my finger up to talk to a cast member. And so she just like hugging me like a frog, and I'm like, it's gonna be okay. But we just had to make it through that first room. And she was fine, but then as soon as we got into that next room, like there was a place to exit, so we did. And then just waited for the rest of the crew to finish that up with like our main intention. Like the girls wanted to do the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train one more time because that was probably one of her favorite rides, and it was listed at like a 15-minute wait by the time we were walking over there. But at some point, Tron went down and was down for the rest of the night. And so that threw a hiccup. I think everybody just shifted over to Seven Dwarfs, and it still said 15 minutes, but the line was all the way backed up outside to like the merry-go-round area, or is it the teacups that are over there? I forget.
The carousel's right there.
Yeah. So we're like, there's no way this is 15 minutes. So we went over to like Barnstormer, and we rode on that, just kind of looped it 3 times. And then I went with like my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and sister, and we wanted to do Space Mountain. I think it was like a 10-minute wait. And then my brother stayed with the kids. Other than Wesley, of course, he wanted to do Space Mountain. And they probably did Barnstormer, I don't know, 8 times, something like that. And then running back to the front of the line was like part of the fun of it. They were just loving it.
It's so fun. Like, I just love that they can repeat things that they want, because during normal daytime hours, it's just not possible.
Yeah. So it was just really cool to experience the park at night. That was like a novelty for us too. And so, my sister and sister-in-law stayed at Space Mountain and did it a second time. I met back up with Olive and my brother and Gemma, and then we just were saying like, well, we're going to do Seven Dwarfs before we leave. So it ended up being a 25-minute wait, which was the longest wait that we had at any ride at Disney, and that was our last ride of the trip. We got on at just after 11, and it was cool to do at night. And at that point, they were getting pretty tired, and so the 3 kids, climbed into the stroller. They like opened the castle up so you can kind of walk right through the middle of the castle at night. So that was really cool, fun way to leave the park. And that was it. I think had to wait for one monorail to get back. I think just the express was open at that point. We probably got back, I don't know, went to bed maybe at midnight that night. But
long day. I bet your step count was hitting 25 to 30,000.
Yeah, I think we were at 31,000 steps.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had us home by 11:45.
That is the longest day you could have had, I think, because you started at Animal Kingdom early and
earliest
ended
park.
Or
Yeah.
midnight.
So yeah, I think it was close to 16 hours and
Long day. I cannot believe
half marathon.
The kids that kept up with it. I mean, they have they had the benefit of a stroller, but also
A
5-year-olds
stroller
sometimes
wouldn't have been
take
possible
naps.
without strollers, even for the 9-year-olds. I know neither of my girls took a nap in the stroller. Wesley didn't take a nap in the stroller. My brother's daughter, I think, fell asleep a couple times, but there was like no complaints for the whole day about being tired. They just, they were really good.
What troopers?
Yeah, it was impressive for sure. I know I talked about I didn't think we'd go back to like Magic Kingdom for like extended hours that night, but unlike the last night, we had we were having such a good day. It just like the temptation of not like hitting a couple rides was too much, and it was like we got in a ton of rides in like a short amount of time, and it was totally worth it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had the energy still to go.
I mean, I was tired. I hadn't slept much. I wasn't probably eating enough, but I was just making it work.
You were just existing on vibes.
Yeah, and it's easy to do because we were just like having such a good time.
Well, your trip was almost over because the next day was Thursday, January 22nd, and it was departure day.
Yeah, so I was up early again. Met my dad for coffee in the morning, but really the only plan, we had a Kona Cafe reservation right at 10, so people got to sleep in. I checked in early to get our groups together. They put us at one, all in the same table, essentially, on one like their long booth areas. The only other things I had to do that morning were bring the strollers out front and the scooters. Those were all getting picked up by 9. I know you're like supposed to meet them out there. I met them out for the scooters. The strollers, they said they were going to be late. And so they just said if you put them out there and kind of don't say anything to anybody, that they'll be able to go out there and get them. I was like, okay, because it was easier for us. We were like right in the middle of breakfast, I think, when they picked them up. So, but yeah, that was pretty smooth. Breakfast there was really good. I had another round of Tonga toast to kind of round out the trip. But I think I tried a few different things. Everything that I tried was good there. And then, the plan, that ended up being the warmest day. I think it was 74 and sunny. So it worked out well. This was just kind of another pool day. We went and hung out the pool until we needed to get picked up for that same bus was picking us up at 3:45. So we just had a lot of time to kill at the pool. I went for a run after we were hanging out at the pool a little bit. I was like tired, but I like running, and I feel like I would have been remiss if I didn't at least squeeze one in with Magic Kingdom is like the focal point. It's like a pretty short run just to like Magic Kingdom and back. So yeah, that was fun to do.
The 31,000 steps the day before your body's like, haven't we done enough?
I remember thinking before going to bed, I'm so glad we don't have a park day the next day. And after breakfast, I was like, as long as I didn't have to wait too early, I think I could probably hit the parks up again today. But so I ran to Magic Kingdom. I was kind of like lingering out the front gates a little bit and just kind of like living vicariously through like the families and kids with like smiles on their faces, like walking into their park day. And already starting to feel a little bit bummed that it was like all over, and I like started running, and there was like a Bon Iver song that started like playing on like my playlist, which is just kind of like a slower, like more emotional song to kind of begin with. So I was like getting like a little like choked up or like having a moment with it. And so took a break to like walk behind some like shrubs, like between like the path and like the monorail there, just to take a breath kind of thing. And it was just, there was like some level of like exhaustion from just being tired and like all this like planning that went into this, and just like having to be so like mentally focused and like the mental gymnastics of like the whole trip, which I don't mean it to sound like stressful, because I don't really get easily stressed, and I like enjoyed like everything about like planning and like kind of being the guide for the trip. But it was just now that it was like over and like everything went so well. It was just, I think, kind of a lot.
It's like build up and then you're on the come down. and everything that comes with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like you said, comping to like planning for like a wedding or something like that, where it's just like this like year-long endeavor, and you're just like so focused on it and doing and like the anticipation, and then all of a sudden like, yeah, it's over. But we had just like such a great time, and we got lucky in a lot of aspects with like weather and not getting sick and travel overall being fine. That, yeah, again, it was awesome. Yeah.
So you ran from the Polynesian on the patch to the Grand Floridian to the Magic Kingdom,
and then just back
and back. Okay.
Yeah, I was hoping I could loop the lake, but I think I looked at some point before the trip, and once you get to a certain spot, there's like no path to go like all the way around.
Yeah.
So
you could have gone to the Contemporary, but then you couldn't have finished the loop over to the Polynesian.
Right. Yep. So yeah, I just ran back. I think the next song on my playlist was like September that came back on, so that felt appropriate, and went swimming, played some games with the girls. At some point, I wasn't that hungry, but I wanted to try the Wayfinder burger over at the Wailulu. I think it's Wailulu Grill over at the new tower. Just I heard good things, and I like trying burgers when I'm in new spots. So I did like a mobile order for that and tried it. It was cool to just kind of walk around in like the lobby of the new tower. I hadn't been in there yet, but made me glad that we stayed at like the main building, like at the same time. But yeah, the burger was pretty good. We were just hanging out at the pool. We got a text that our Delta flight was going to be delayed until the next day. And then we got a text like a minute later saying like, just kidding, it's back on time. But at that point, I was like apprehensive of something's probably going on. So I started tracking our actual plane that was in Minneapolis that was coming to MCO that would be flying us back. And it said they were boarding, but they weren't. That kept getting delayed. There was some mechanical issue. That plane didn't end up getting to MCO until 3 a.m, I think. But we ended up getting an update that they found a different plane for us. But there was still, I think, a 4-hour delay because they probably had to put a crew together. So our 6:20 flight got pushed to 10:20. But, all things considered, it was fine. We still just ended up taking our scheduled bus back and just got to the airport early and hung out in an airport lounge. Delta gave us like $36 a piece in vouchers to like buy food, which we didn't even get through all of that. But yeah, that was about it. We got home late. It was 2 a.m. by the time we got back to our house. We went from 74 and sunny to -22, feels like -40 when we landed. So just like this very jarring transition back home on top of like, feeling bummed out that your trip is over too. And then like being in Minneapolis, there's just a lot of stuff going on that
the news
builds into all this. This whole trip was, unintentionally, of course, timed that way, but we just kind of got to forget about life while we're in Disney, and then you kind of go back to everything. So it's like definitely like a tough transition, but it's been about a week feeling better, just kind of getting back into the norm and all that. But yeah, again, overall, we had a great time.
But did a good job planning a first trip and for such a big group. And you had said in the pre-trip that I said they're lucky to have you doing this, and you said, I hope they don't notice. Like, I just hope it all goes well.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of like gratitude throughout the trip because I think it did feel like pretty seamless for everybody. But they recognized that there was still like a lot of planning that had to happen to make it that way. So yeah, everybody's like very excited and appreciative, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I want to in the after set. I want to talk more about like your preparation and how you how you.
And I'll just say, like, as an aside to you, Shannon, and like the other podcasts too. I think the only other like main podcast I like started listening to was like Addicted to the Mouse. Dan and Leslie, they were like super great in my initial research. But like the months leading up to this, I probably listened to like every like post trip from like 2025 and some beyond. And so really just like an earnest like thank you, because it allowed me to like know what a park day can look like and know like when things aren't going right, or if it starts to rain, or if you need to stop somewhere, all those like little things that you just can't like plan for if you haven't been there before. But I felt like as best I could through listening to all those things that prepared me better than I could have like imagined. Like I kind of thought like when I get there, this is all going to be like harder and more difficult to navigate than I thought. But I don't know. I don't know if I could have been any more prepared for all those types of things. And so,
and evidence in the trip that you were able to plan.
Yeah. But, you know, I think most of your audience is probably just like wanting to hear about other people's trips and stuff. But for me, it was just like such a difference maker to like have a successful trip. So I have like all these memories and like moments like with my family that I'll have forever. And so I think I partially attributed to, at least to like you and other people that have podcasts like you. So I'm like, that was like my main way of like consuming information and planning for this. So I'm just like thankful that resources like yours exist. So
I'm so glad. And that's why we do it. We want it to be helpful. Yeah. It's one thing because I tend to be, my default is I want to teach. I want an outline and I want to go, I want to talk about a topic. But doing the trip reports allows you to see how it actually plays out.
Yeah. So it was, all of that was like.
So that's helpful. I'm glad.
Super helpful. There was definitely moments where I'm at a park or, you know, certain areas where there's just like things that would click. It's like, oh yeah, we can do this or we should check this out. And it was really great.
Good. I'm glad it was super helpful. I want to ask you how you felt about some of the choices that you made during the trip. How did you feel about traveling this time of year?
Yeah, I think that would be, if we were to do another trip, which I'd love to, as soon as like a family member brings up like, hey, should we go back to Disney? Like, I'm going to be all in again on planning something. I'd love to go back. I don't know when or if that'll happen, but you know, it'd be worth it for me for sure. I think just like this trip, I'd prioritize trying to find like a less busy, like a low to moderate crowd day. I know, you know, why people go on like spring break and it's just like for school and it's easier, but I just don't think I ever would. We kind of got that experience on our Universal day. I'm just like, I mean, we still had a good time. We did a lot, but just the vibe is different when there's just so many people there. And so if I would have changed anything about this trip, I probably would have shifted again somewhere. So we're like avoiding that Sunday at Universal, maybe doing it towards the end. And maybe that helps a little bit, but I would probably still either do the same time or maybe early December, which is probably a little bit busier, but then you kind of get the Christmas vibes, but I'd still like focus on, well, we're probably going to miss a little bit of school, but we're not going to be doing these trips every year. And so I'd prefer to try to find a time where their crowd calendars are at least estimating like lower attendance.
And still mild temps then.
Yeah. Usually. I mean, I know there were some days over this past week where it was like pretty legitimately cold and weather's not great. I think overall we got sort of lucky, but yeah, other than that short stint at Universal, the weather like did not impact us at all.
How'd you feel about staying at the Polynesian?
It was so cool. I mean, I have nothing to compare it to, but I probably benefited more than most. And then I was at the lobby a lot, at least for like, you know, in the mornings when I was up before everybody else. But it's just like a very cool vibe. It's very easy to get places. We'd probably try a different resort if we go back. It would be kind of cool to stay in like the boardwalk or that area. So you're kind of really close to those other parks. And I think from a DVC rental, was like close to maybe half the price, although it'd be hard not to go back to the Polynesian if I was getting like a similar deal on like our nightly rates that we were able to get, because it was really, at least comparatively, not too bad. I think we could save quite a bit of money if we cut out some of like the more expensive like meals, that we don't have to do like Cinderella's Royal Table again, or I think I could manage, you know, a multi-pass pretty well if it's not a crazy park day. That Monday worked out pretty well for us in that it was a holiday, but there was also like a Disney, whatever, the late night or the after hours, like the event that's open till 1 o'clock. So I think that splits, you know, the park a little bit, and some people just plan on going at night. So it didn't feel that hectic at Magic Kingdom, but we were also coming from Universal where it certainly was much busier there the previous day. But yeah, from a timing and weather and location standpoint, that'd probably be my still my first pick to do that again. But if I were to go anywhere else, I'd probably look at some of those places by Epcot, Hollywood Studios.
Benefits to those as well. You mentioned in the pre-trip that the Premier Pass was a significant % of your overall budget. Did you think the Premier Pass at Magic Kingdom was worth it?
Yeah, I think for us, it for sure was. Again, I was like a little bit nervous about just not ever using the Lightning Lane system before. And if it didn't go well, I didn't want that to like derail our day. I was not sure how easy it was going to be to manage that with a group of 18. Because again, I couldn't find a whole lot of like comps on threads and things that if people have done that or at least had some like kind of mixed perceptions of it. But from my experience, I don't think it makes a difference whether you're looking for times for one person or up to 20 people. I think if it's there and it's going to let you book it and you get to one stage where you kind of select who like in your party is going to go on, you can just kind of select all. So it really was not that much harder, I don't think, to manage for 18 people other than, it forces everybody to say like, well, this is what we're doing. We're all doing this ride. You can either do it or not. But that's a little bit easier, again, in that no one had been to the parks. So it's not like they had these priorities in terms of they wanted to do certain rides. So they were a pretty easy group to plan for because I didn't have any like dissenting opinions like one way or the other. And if they missed something, they were completely oblivious to it. Like maybe the exception of Test Track. Like I talked about Test Track a little bit and that we were planning to do it if we could. And then it just didn't work out to be able to book all of those at Epcot. But
yeah, makes sense. All right, is there anything about your trip we haven't talked about before we wrap it up?
I mean, I don't think so. I had like I'd written down like a few thoughts on just like some of the things that we used. I mean, I talked about Happy Limo and that I think if you're with a big group or looking for just like an upgrade, whether it's from like a bus or like some of the limousine options they have, I think that's like worth looking into. Going as a group was, I think, awesome. It was a little bit easier to stay together than I thought. Like we really did stay together for most of the time. If I do go back, I'll always want to go at least with like one other family, if not two, like to get just like, I think a little more fun to experience as a group. And honestly, it made going on some of these rides easier. We never had to worry about doing a child swap or anything like that because it was either a ride that we could bring everyone on, including, Baby Penny, or it was a ride that only some people wanted to do anyway. So it was easy to, we never had to deal with like child swap versus if my, sister and brother-in-law went with their 5-year-old Wesley, who of course wanted to do every roller coaster, and then they have Baby Penny. They would have been, having to do a child swap on all those types of rides, and it would have just been like less efficient to like navigate through their day.
My vote is that you go back with Wesley.
Yeah, he was such a fun little dude to like experience the parks with because he just like had a good attitude the whole time and was just like willing and wanting to do everything.
He showed that he is in it.
It was awesome.
Capable. And when he grows a little bit, he'll be able to go on 100% of the rides.
Yeah. Yep. Strollers were just, again, I think there's like, once you get to like 9, whether, your 9-year-old kids need a stroller, you can probably get by. It depends on your kid. But like for us, when we had like these long park days, we just would not have been able to do it without it. They were in the strollers most of the time. And that was sort of the same with like just having snacks. That really helped kind of keep the day moving where like we still stopped and would buy food and buy snacks. But like if you just really needed something, like we had a peanut butter sandwich or some goldfish or something that, a kid that was getting hungry or even an adult as they're getting hungry, that we'd have something. So that made a big difference for just trying to stay on track too. And then I think the only other thing was like from a scooter standpoint, I rented the scooters because I was like a little bit nervous. I'd read about like sometimes the ones that Disney have where they'll like sell out, and I didn't want to like risk that. And so I just didn't really know. And so I just rented these, but in reality, it would have been much more convenient to just like utilize the ones that they have at the park if they're going to be available. I think these were like slower enough park days that they probably would have been. And then I wouldn't have to deal with this the issue that we have, which, maybe that tainted my perception to begin with. But getting on the buses and stuff and things like that was, when my parents can both walk around, it was just more of like these long days. My mom said like she wouldn't have been able to do it without it. And so that was definitely helpful, but it just, a little bit harder to get around. And then, kind of the unexpected issue we had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next time, if you go with it next time, you'll know.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think other than that, when I was looking, if I ever look to schedule like another trip, there's probably, not too much I would necessarily change. I think the other approach would be to do just like not quite so long of park days, and then maybe you don't need, the break day. But if you're staying till like 10 or 11 o'clock, those late nights, it's like, I think hard not to have like a rest day after some of those late nights, at least. For our group, it would have been difficult, but.
Yeah, I can see how that worked out well for you to have, because it's not possible to have those really late nights with the super early mornings. And a lot of people do try to put them back to back.
Yeah, I get the temptation. It's like, well, we're here. We got to try to do as much as we can. But at some point, it gets to probably be too much. So that would be like, my thought is probably err on the side of taking more breaks. And this is kind of the approach that I've taken it. And again, that just happened to work out best for us. But.
And you're staying at a great resort with fun pools and fireworks views and good food. And
and we spent up on a lot of things, which, that makes this whole trip that much more, enjoyable. If we went back, I would, kind of looking at numbers, I think I could pretty easily cut the budget fairly significantly and still like have a good time. But I don't know when. We don't have plans to go back. I mean, I would love to, at least maybe in like a few years, once we kind of hit some different ages, and then you kind of get a different experience now that you're like a little bit older and want to do different things. So I would love to. I don't know if we will, but hopefully we will. Yeah.
Well, now you got to figure out how you're going to spend all the planner energy.
I know. I feel like I've learned so much and like proved like how much you can kind of like become like a Disney expert before you actually even like go. But now I have all this like information that I'm not going to be really putting to use, at least like anytime soon. And if we go in like 4 years, I don't know, maybe the lightning lane system isn't going to be there anymore. They seem to like pivot pretty quickly.
In the time that I've been doing this, it's changed 4 times.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't think I'll quite be starting from scratch. When we get to our next trip, I'll have a pretty good like baseline of information. But a few years ago.
I'll start a note called "Things That Have Changed Since You Went Last Time, Jamison," and that way you can get caught up really quick.
I'll reach out to you in a few years when we're ready to go back, and maybe we'll make it easy. But
I'm glad it was a good trip, and you did a good job planning, and everybody seems like they had a fun time. So hopefully you do get to go back sooner rather than later.
Yeah. In the interim, my wife's sister got a job, so we're like celebrating tonight. She's coming over for some like breakfast for dinner. So we're going to make some like Mickey pancakes, and I bought some stuff to make some like butter beer from home. We're going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy, so we sort of get our little fix from home.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time to share.
Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that trip report. I really did. And I'm so glad that he not only took the initiative to learn how to plan the trips, but also to take notes so that we could talk about them on the podcast. Always appreciative of guests doing that, because I know it's an extra layer of work on top of an already busy trip. We did continue talking on Patreon because I wanted to know how he learned how to plan trips, because it's a lot to take in. As we all know, we had to start somewhere, and I was curious how that worked for him. So that is up on Patreon right now in video and audio form. I think that'll wrap up this episode of WDW Prep to Go. For more information, head to the website, or you think after 499 episodes I'd have this. For more information, check the show notes in your podcast app or head to the website, wdwprepschool.com. Click on podcast at the top, scroll down to episode 499. Until next time, I will see you on the site.